How does the most powerful man who can wipe out a whole monster horde end up like this? You guessed it. He was betrayed by the 9 stars. But it's even deeper than that. Before dying, our protagonist transfers his soul into another body. In his new body, he maxes out his skills, and for his subclass, he's an all-master. Yeah, you heard right, his main class is one that can wipe the world out. He tames a spirit master and even an Oni. With his new recruits, he vows to eliminate the 9 stars and whoever was involved in his betrayal. This is how it began. The world changed, but not because of tectonic shifts or volcanic eruptions. It was something far more chaotic and terrifying. Monsters started appearing out of nowhere. Suddenly, these creatures were everywhere, pushing humanity to the brink of extinction. The world was in chaos, and no one knew why. And then there was him, a hooded man surrounded by monsters. He looked around, realizing he was the reason they were there, the entity that made it all possible. The Tower, a mysterious land that gave these monsters power and authority. People called it the Devil's Tower or God's Tower, depending on who you asked. The reason behind its name was shrouded in mystery, but one thing was clear: it was the source of all the chaos. Climb the tower, and everything you could ever wish for would be inside. Power, wealth, honor, you name it. The tower promised it all. But at what cost? A massive tower with a total of 999 floors. The beings that commanded that place? Gods and demons, apparently. Governments around the world tried to stop people from approaching the tower, but it was no use. The allure of power and wealth was too strong. Tanks and military forces were deployed, but nothing could stop the determined climbers. The battlefield was filled with explosions and chaos, but the climbers pressed on, undeterred by the danger. Craters and holes littered the landscape, evidence of the fierce battles fought. But the tower's promise was too great to ignore. Just like the gods and demons had proclaimed, those who tried to stop others from challenging the tower were punished severely. It had been several years since billions of people started paying attention to the tower, and now humanity was ready for its first attempt at clearing the 600th floor. A horizontal red slash appeared, signaling the start of the challenge. Huge explosions rocked the tower as the climbers began their ascent, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the explosions faded, a lone figure stood in defiance. The man was furious, shouting that 9 Star dared to stand in his way. 9 Star wasn't having it. They questioned his actions, reminding him that among millions of challengers, only 9 stood above the rest. Using the magic and holy energy they earned from the tower, 9 Star warned everyone to be careful. The man wasn't stable, but their powers were unmatched. Purple energy surged around the man as he raged, declaring his noble actions wouldn't end with his death. He was the Dark Star, the Death Star. Cha Jin-hyuk wasn't a master of any weapon, nor was he superhuman. But he was the man who surpassed the 9 Star and took the title of the strongest. As he awoke, the ground trembled. Hands burst from the dirt, heralding the arrival of the man who brings death. The undead began to rise, the epitome of death itself. Cha Jin-hyuk, the greatest necromancer, stood amidst the undead skeletons. He found the scene perfect, bored of peace and humanity. With a smile, he declared all he needed was to be strong. He would use them all as summoned beasts and become the greatest. The undead charged at the 9 Stars. The 9 Stars knew he had betrayed humanity and sided with the devil. Cha just laughed, telling them to fuck off. With no choice left, 9 Star prepared to fight. They had to defeat the traitor, Cha Jin-hyuk. Although Cha Jin-hyuk had betrayed and attacked the 9 Star after being consumed by power, they were ready. Light magic rained down, destroying the undead skeletons. Cha was furious, but he was unable to defeat the entirety of the 9 Star on his own. The 9 Stars charged, telling Cha Jin-hyuk to die and accept his punishment for betraying humanity. Cha Jin-hyuk, the traitor who betrayed humanity for power, sweated under the pressure. A powerful spear pierced through Cha, seemingly ending the battle. As Cha spat blood, it seemed that was just the story the world was aware of. But the truth was far from what the world believed. Cha Jin-hyuk didn't betray humanity. Instead, he was the one betrayed by the 9 Stars, or more accurately, 8 of them. This truth was buried, hidden from the world, and 10 long years had passed since then. In a dimly lit room, a figure lay motionless, the weight of the past pressing down like a physical force. A groan escaped his lips, raw and pained. Beneath the cover, a whisper broke through the silence. A vow, raw and determined, slipped out. He would return. The 9 Stars would pay for what they had done. Suddenly, he sprang up, energy surging through him like a storm. Confusion clouded his eyes as he looked around the unfamiliar room. Disbelief echoed in his voice, but then, realization dawned. It had worked. A smile tugged at his lips. His secret skill, soul transmission, had actually worked. Against all odds, it had succeeded. At the brink of death, this spell had allowed him to send his soul to a body that suited him, a last-ditch effort to survive. And it seemed fate was on his side. The body it found had a similar physicality to his own, and he was still in South Korea. The stars were aligning, quite literally. But the anger was still there, burning hot. Those damned 9 stars. They had betrayed him when he was at his most vulnerable. He could have cleared the floor by himself. He didn't need their help. But they offered, and then they betrayed him. The thought made his hands tremble with rage. Memories flooded back, the pain of swords piercing his body, the mocking voices echoing in his mind. Why had they betrayed him? Above him, 2 figures stood, looking down with cold eyes. Cain the paladin and Carmen the saintess. They were certain he wouldn't be able to summon anything on these hallowed grounds. Carmen's voice was icy, her words cutting deep. He might be called the one-man army, but when it came to just him, he was nothing compared to them. Or so they thought. Cha's voice was barely a whisper, the pain of betrayal evident. He was only trying to help them, but they had turned on him, leaving him broken and bleeding. Cain approached, his voice devoid of emotion. He told Cha not to take things too personally. It wasn't like they had bad feelings towards him. It was just business, or so he claimed. Cain's expression shifted, his smile turning sinister as he continued, suggesting that what they were doing was akin to pulling out weeds. Cha shouted out in frustration, calling out Choi Kyung-hoon's name and questioning if that traitor was in league with all the others. Choi Kyung-hoon, his supposed friend and a star combatant among the 9 stars, was revealed to have decided not to participate in clearing the floor, leaving Cha to face the consequences alone. Cha scoffed, realizing they had kept Choi Kyung-hoon away because they were worried he might actually help him. Those sick bastards had really played him. Cha's vision started to blur as he cursed his situation. He had lost too much blood and his strength was fading fast. As purple energy glowed on his hand, Cha accepted his fate. He had lost this time, but it wouldn't be the end. With his last bit of strength, Cha pressed the purple aura into his body, vowing that this wouldn't be the end of everything. As his vision faded, Cha promised to return stronger, his fury directed at the traitors who had betrayed him. Cha's body finally gave out and he collapsed, his consciousness slipping away. Back in the present, Cha was still furious, the memories of his betrayal fresh in his mind. Fuming, Cha promised that he wouldn't even need to summon beasts to grind their souls and prevent them from ever reincarnating. Just as his anger peaked, a phone rang out, breaking the tension with an almost comical greeting. Cha looked around, confused by the sudden interruption. Picking up the phone, Cha muttered about it being a smartphone, something he hadn't used in a while. As he swiped through the screen, Cha couldn't help but admire the device, noting how nice it felt. Suddenly, shock spread across his face as he saw the date on the phone. The year read 2023. Cha couldn't believe it. 10 years had passed. Scratching his head, Cha muttered that it felt like mere moments had passed, not years. What kind of skill was this? Confused, Cha wondered if he could even use magic with this new body, whatever had happened to him. Cha clapped his hands together, trying to figure out what was going on with this new body of his. Was he even capable of using magic anymore? He got up, brushing off the dead fly that had been annoying him. Time to test this body out. Cha attempted to conjure his magic, feeling a sense of relief as he realized he was finally awake. But nothing happened. It was like his body was not responding to his commands at all. Cha repeatedly shouted awake, trying to force his body to respond. Awake, awaken, wake up. Frustration set in as he realized there was not a single drop of mana in this body. What was going on? Cha looked out the window, wondering what this all meant. Was he really powerless now? He saw the tower in the distance. Was he really expected to climb that tower without any skills he could use? Cha grabbed his phone, checking the news. 10 years had passed. There was no way they had managed to climb to the top in that time, right? He scrolled through the articles, looking for any information on the tower's progress. Cha found an article stating that Choi had reached floor 800. Those bastards had only managed to climb 200 floors in the last 10 years? This was his chance. While they were taking their sweet time climbing the tower, he could catch up and get his revenge. Cha was determined. He grabbed his jacket, ready to make his move. Putting it on, he knew training outside the tower was pointless. He needed to leave immediately. Although his body might be that of a beginner, he had the knowledge of the Death Star Cha Jinhyuk. He would use his knowledge and know how to get strong, fast. With eyes full of determination, Cha vowed to make 9-star pay. He would get his revenge, no matter what. Cha made his way to the Soul Tower entrance, ready to begin his climb. The entrance loomed before him, a challenge he was ready to face. Cha walked through the crowd, his mind set on his goal. He would climb the tower and reclaim his power. Cha walked through the crowd, his mind set on his goal. He would climb the tower and reclaim his power. As he pushed forward, whispers of hope and doubt swirled around him. Some dreamed of wealth, while others sneered, betting he would not even make it past the first floor. But Cha was not here for them. This was the tower, the place where everyone's hopes and stories were collected, and Cha was about to add his own. The stairs loomed ahead, each step a challenge, each floor a test. But Cha was ready. As he climbed, memories flashed before his eyes. A skeletal hand emerged from the coffin, a reminder of the horrors he had faced. But Cha was not the same person he used to be. Fire raged in the forest, a symbol of the chaos he had left behind. I am finally back, he thought, stepping through the flames. Footsteps echoed in the distance. A woman running, perhaps another challenger, perhaps a foe. A coin flipped in the air, a symbol of chance and fate. But Cha was not leaving anything to chance. On the name of Cha Jinhyuk, he vowed, I will make sure everyone is aware of me. The tower entrance stood before him, the doors wide open. As the crowd surged forward, Cha remained still, his determination burning brighter than ever. With a final glance at the tower, he stepped forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. This was his moment, his story, his revenge. Our protagonist steps through the portal, ready to dive into whatever chaos awaits on the other side. The door slams shut behind him, sealing his fate. No turning back now. A voice echoes, welcoming him as a climber. Guess he's officially in the game now. He mutters to himself, realizing it's been 15 long years. Time sure flies when you're dead. Huh? He finds himself in the tutorial stage. Great, even in the afterlife you can't escape the basics. He sighs, calling the tutorial out. But hey, if it's got the highest difficulty, maybe it won't be a total snooze fest. The path ahead is filled with traps, and it's going to take days to get through. Everyone said this place was the most ridiculous out of the 10 floors. The system bar pops up, telling him to get past all the traps. Easy peasy, right? He needs to check out his new body stats. The stats are weak, like really weak. Not the upgrade he was hoping for. He's got gluttony and mana-type traits. Not exactly the combo he was expecting. These aren't the stats he had before he died. Looks like traits and talents differ between bodies. He stretches, ready to make the most of what he's got. During the tutorial, he's determined to squeeze out every bit of potential. No wasting time here. He sprints, the air whipping around him. Guess he's not completely out of shape. A red magic arrow flies at him. The system announces he's left the starting point and triggered a trap. He dodges the arrow like it's nothing. Smooth moves, dude. He smirks, knowing the arrows are only visible when shot. His know-how hasn't gone anywhere. More red arrows come flying. Bring it on. The main character was ready for more, but the sheer number of red arrows flying his way had him thinking this was a bit too much for a welcome. Dodging every single arrow like a pro, he was on a roll. But then more arrows came out of nowhere, right from his blind spot. This time, he wasn't fast enough. The arrows hit him. Still standing, he muttered that it wasn't over yet, he could take a little more. But the arrows just kept coming, more and more of them flying towards him. A lot of arrows hit him this time, but he was still up. He was barely hanging in there, but he wasn't going down. He started running, even though it hurt like crazy. He needed to keep going. Dripping blood, he was nearly at the finish line. But then, he collapsed. Just as he was about to give up, he started to recover. A voice echoed, saying he had returned to the starting point and all damage had been recovered. He got up, determined to see how long he could endure this time. It hurt so much, but he wasn't going to give up. Looking back at the blood he had spilled, he knew he couldn't just mindlessly run forward. Tossing the blood, he recalled the 2 traits that made him Earth's strongest climber. One of them was gluttony. He licked the blood, embracing his trait of gluttony. The blood started flowing towards him as he declared that he would devour this non-living thing and make it all his. His energy rose as he realized that the blood he spilled was lifeless, and the experience he gained from it would all be his. All his stats went up by 1, making him even stronger. Looking at his new stats, he was pleased to see his tolerance and experience had increased. Even without bothering with annoying equipment, he could withstand the basic status abnormalities. Feeling pretty good about his stats, he figured it would take him a week to clear the tutorial and become a great climber. But he was ready to tank all the arrow shots and continue, determined to increase his stats with sheer grit. He pushed himself relentlessly, focused on maxing out his tolerance experience. 1 month later, the grind was finally over. Standing at the finish portal, he took a moment to heal up. He had cleared the tutorial, but it took way longer than expected, going back and forth. A whole month, really? Looking around, he noticed some unwanted attention. Gods and demons were taking a keen interest in him, yet again. He sighed, recognizing the familiar presence. They were here this time too? Frustration boiled over. Again, these sadistic, sick bastards were at it once more. The gods and demons loomed, their gazes fixed on him. Gods and demons always watching, seeing if someone similar to them appeared. They were angered by his profanity, those disgusting sadists. None of them revealed their true names or identities, probably playing tricks to make him their disciple. Even if he did well in the tutorial, there was no need to scout him. A demon smiled, the system announcing the peak of all evil greeting him with a casual "How have you been?" Baal? That stalking bastard was here again. The peak of all evil, Baal. In his previous life, Baal had stuck to him like glue, trying to make him his disciple. Did Baal recognize him? Baal was the one who let him obtain soul transmission. Yeah, he got the benefit of the soul transmission Baal gave him, but still, stalking bastard. A god and a demon were showing interest in him, drawn to him like moths to a flame. He yelled at the system, frustrated by the attention from these powerful beings. Why were they so attracted to him? It was all getting a bit too much. Just as he was drowning in his own thoughts, a system notification popped up with the most random statement ever. The peak of all evil is apologizing? What kind of life advice was this supposed to be? Cha had reached his limit. He couldn't take it anymore. With a burst of frustration, he yelled out loud for everyone to just shut up and leave him alone. But the system wasn't having it. Kept on pushing, and Cha fired back. He wasn't about to back down, not now, not ever. If they wanted to watch, fine, but they better do it quietly. The system seemed to sulk, but Cha wasn't done yet. He had more to say, and he wasn't going to hold back. He made it clear that even if he had to choose someone, the system was definitely not an option. It was time to stop dreaming and face reality. With that settled, Cha decided to check out the tutorial stage rewards. Maybe something good would come out of this mess. Using his gluttony skill, Cha absorbed the blood around him, replenishing his stats to full. It was a gruesome sight, but effective. His stats were now maxed out, and he felt stronger than ever. The system confirmed that he was now able to endure more than before. Cha had received a ton of upgrades, and the system notified him that he was now able to endure more. It was a small victory, but he'd take it. He checked his mana levels, surprised to find them increased. As a mana type, he was able to boost his mana even at this early stage. It was a rare advantage, and he wasn't about to waste it. Suddenly, the system announced that a new trait had been unlocked. Cha was confused. He already had the gluttony trait. What was this about? The system revealed a mysterious trait, marked with question marks. Cha was intrigued. What could this new trait be? As he focused on the trait, he realized it was something the original owner of his body had possessed. It was an all-rounder trait, something that could make him good at everything. Cha was stunned. The owner of this body already possessed this trait? What did that mean for him? The trait was called all-rounder, a talent that would let him be good at everything. It was almost too good to be true. Cha couldn't believe it. What was this trait, and why did he have it? It was all so confusing, but he couldn't help feeling a surge of excitement. The all-rounder trait was a game-changer. It meant he could be good at everything, a true all-master. The possibilities were endless. Cha couldn't contain his excitement. This was amazing. With this trait, he might actually be able to achieve his goals. A smile spread across his face as he thought about the possibilities. He recalled the name he had failed to obtain despite long preparations, the best at everything, an all-master. And now, with this trait, he might finally achieve it. Even the peak of all evil seemed curious about Cha's new status. It was as if the world itself was watching, waiting to see what he would do next. Cha was stunned. What was happening? This was all so sudden, so unexpected, but he couldn't deny the thrill of it all. Cha had enough of the peak of all evil's nonsense. With a sharp turn, he dismissed the bothersome presence, ready to move on. Looking back one last time, Cha announced his departure to the next floor, leaving an open invitation for anyone daring enough to follow. As Cha strode towards the portal, the peak of all evil decided to tag along, setting the stage for an unexpected journey together. Emerging from the portal, Cha found himself in what seemed to be the room of choice and training, a place brimming with possibilities. Stepping into the room, Cha was greeted by an array of weapons, each one calling out to him, promising power and adventure. The system welcomed him, offering a choice of weapon and class, a decision that would shape his journey ahead. Cha reminisced about his past life, a time when he discovered his mana type and embraced the path of a mage without hesitation. But this time, things were different. Cha reached for a bow, curiosity sparking in his eyes as he considered a new path. With a grin, Cha decided to test his all-rounder trait, generating a practice target to see just how impressive his skills could be. Targets appeared before him, ready for action. Cha was eager to see what he could do, even without selecting a class yet. The system generated the targets, setting the stage for Cha's impromptu training session. Cha took aim with his bow, focusing on the targets ahead, ready to unleash his skills. With a swift motion, Cha let loose 3 arrows, each one flying true towards its mark. Bullseye! All 3 arrows found their targets, proving Cha's aim was as sharp as ever. Not satisfied with just hitting stationary targets, Cha upped the ante, requesting targets that could fight back, much to the system's concern. But Cha wasn't worried. With a confident smile, he was ready to take on whatever challenge came his way. Cha's confidence was about to be put to the test as target dummies suddenly appeared out of nowhere, ready for action. Plot twist, Cha didn't flinch. He pulled out his bow and started firing, taking down the dummies one by one. 3 dummies down, heads shot clean off. Cha was on a roll, but the battle was far from over. 2 more dummies were still charging at him, relentless in their attack. They leaped towards Cha, but he was ready for them. With a swift motion, Cha slashed the dummies in half. But his sword was looking worse for wear. The sword was dull and barely holding together. Cha needed something stronger. Cha set the sword down and called out for stronger opponents. He wasn't done yet. The system heard his call. Larger, stronger humanoid targets appeared, ready to take Cha on. Cha leaped towards the new targets, his determination unwavering. With a swift and precise motion, he pierced the head of the large target with his spear. 1 down, more to go. Cha switched to daggers, ready to take on the next wave of targets. In an instant, he slashed through 2 more targets. His skills were on full display. But the challenge wasn't over yet. Ranged targets appeared, adding a new layer of difficulty. Cha looked at the new targets, a ranged attacker. This was getting interesting. He took cover, avoiding the range attacks. These targets were the most dangerous yet. Cha wasn't intimidated. He started running, ready to take them on headfirst. He couldn't believe these were supposed to be the strongest targets. He was just getting warmed up. A staff materialized in front of him. Cha knew it was time to bring out his specialty. He equipped the staff, ready to show what he was truly capable of. With the staff in hand, he wasted no time showing off his skills, unleashing a flurry of attacks on the ranged targets. A grin spread across his face as he realized his speed was unmatched, leaving him feeling invincible. The staff glowed with a purple hue as he channeled his magic, preparing to unleash a powerful attack. With a swift motion, the magic arrow struck all 3 targets, leaving no doubt about his precision and power. He couldn't believe the power he felt, as if he had been using these weapons for years. Was this the power of the all-rounder trait? The system notified him that he had cleared an achievement, marking his progress. His attack status skyrocketed, increasing by 5,000, leaving him in awe of his newfound strength. The term All-Master echoed in his mind. Could it be a class name? The possibilities seemed endless. The system prompted him, asking if he wanted to choose All-Master as his class, presenting a crucial decision. Despite the temptation, he knew he couldn't abandon his greatest advantage. He needed to choose something else as his main class. He decided to select All-Master as his subclass, hoping to gain even more power and versatility. The system responded that it was unable to fulfill his request, leaving him confused and frustrated. He realized he had forgotten that the subclass slot only opened after clearing the 100th floor, a major setback. He knew he couldn't leave the room without selecting a class, but using his accomplishment points might be a waste. He wondered if he could unlock the subclass slot with his accomplishment points, a glimmer of hope in his predicament. The system questioned how a beginner like him knew about such a thing, adding to his frustration. The system explained that accomplishment points were a currency that allowed users to make changes to the system, but he was still short on points. He sighed, knowing there was no point in explaining how he knew about the points. He decided to use 500 points to unlock the subclass slot. The system informed him that it was possible, but he didn't have enough accomplishment points currently, leaving him 50 points short. With a sigh, he knew he had no choice. He called out to Baal, hoping for a solution to his predicament. The peak of all evil, Baal, revealed his identity and talked to him. He wondered if there was an accomplishment for talking to the gods for the first time, a potential lifeline in his quest. Talking to Baal, the big bad himself, actually scored him 200 points. Not bad for a casual chat with the peak of all evil. Ball asked if he did well, but Cha was having none of it. The sheer audacity made him want to hurl. Cha took a deep breath and agreed to whatever came next, ready to move on from this bizarre encounter. Suddenly, a notification popped up. Congratulations, it said. He had unlocked the All-Master subclass. Things were getting interesting. His staff charged with a purple glow, and the system announced he would be transported to the first floor of the tower after destroying the room. Time to get this show on the road. A smirk spread across his face as he thought about finally getting his revenge. With a powerful slam, he brought his charged staff down, ready to unleash his fury. The night sky greeted him as the system confirmed his transportation to the first floor of the tower. He found himself in a dense forest, the first floor known as Carole Forest. Goblins lurked in the shadows, their eyes gleaming with mischief. Nearby, a guy struggled to carry an unconscious person, while another stood beside him, both clearly frustrated by the difficulty of the first floor. A goblin charged at them, tongue out, probably thinking it was Michael Jordan. The guy freaked out, clearly not ready for this level of weirdness. Suddenly, the sky cracked open, revealing a portal. Cha leaped out of the portal, landing gracefully and spotting the goblin immediately. His eyes gleamed with excitement as he declared the goblin his first prey. With a burst of speed, he charged towards the unsuspecting creature. In one swift motion, he stomped the goblin's head into the ground, making quick work of his first challenge. He stood between the guys and the goblin, a smirk playing on his lips as he greeted the kobold, reminiscing about old times. The kobold, clearly startled, began to freak out at the sight of him. The kobold's freak-out only made him smirk, clearly amused by the reaction. He had a plan, and it started with a simple declaration: monsters and kobolds better watch out. His aura intensified, sending a clear message he was ready to devour them all. But it wasn't just about the thrill of the hunt, he was curious about the rewards that awaited him. One guy stood there, completely amazed by what he just witnessed. He couldn't believe that someone had taken down the kobold in a single move. He was even more shocked to find out that the one who did it was supposedly a mage, but instead of using magic, he defeated it with just a kick. Another guy stepped up, eager to team up with him. He suggested that if they combined their powers, they could take on even bigger challenges together. But the protagonist wasn't interested. With a cold stare, he told them to get lost. The guys were confused, not sure what they did wrong or why he was so dismissive. The protagonist's intense stare made it clear he wasn't messing around. He warned them that if they touched one of the kobolds, they would die. The guys trembled, realizing he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Without another word, they turned tail and ran, promising to get lost immediately. The protagonist turned his attention to the remaining kobolds, wondering if they were thinking of avenging their fallen comrade. The kobolds charged at him, ready to fight. The protagonist was ready for them, but to his surprise, one of the kobolds didn't attack. Instead, it just stood there, seemingly confused. The protagonist didn't hesitate. He struck the confused kobold, sending it crashing to the ground. The protagonist was puzzled. He couldn't understand why the kobold didn't fight back. The remaining kobold, seeing its companion fall, decided it had enough and tried to make a run for it. The protagonist wasn't about to let it escape. He pointed his charged staff at the fleeing kobold. With a swift motion, he cast a magic arrow, piercing the kobold through. The kobold fell, defeated. The protagonist, realizing he was late, decided to start looting the bodies right away. After looting the bodies, the protagonist got a quest to defeat 10 kobolds. He thought it was a piece of cake and that he could easily defeat 100 right now. Since he was already on the task, he figured he might as well go for the Slayer achievement. He recalled that if you kill one type of monster 1,000 times, you receive the achievement of being a Slayer. The past him went around to obtain all the Slayer achievements. Looking at the dead kobold, he wondered if he should fill up his empty stomach. He decided to use his gluttony skill. He sucked up the energy from the kobold, pause. He swallowed, pause again. He could see it, the kobold's memories flooding his mind. The strength of the kobold was becoming his, and he could also understand the language of the kobolds now. His stats increased, surprising him. He couldn't believe his stats increased this much, reaching the level of a 150-floor climber. He wondered if this was a class adjustment and if he, as an all-master, would get all the bonuses that come with all the classes. He delved deeper into the kobold's memories. The kobold's memories revealed a sense of urgency, needing to hurry as someone was getting angry and threatening his child. The kobold needed to hurry and prepare, fearing the pain of getting hit. The kobold finished his preparations, ready to face the threat. The threat was revealed to be a kobold lord. The protagonist smiled, realizing the timing was amazing. A kobold lord, the harbinger of a monster wave. He could get his Slayer achievement and farm at the same time, but to face a wave he needed an army. He charged his mana, preparing to awaken his army. The kobolds began to float up, ready to be awakened. Just as the kobolds hung in the air, beams of energy shot into them, lighting up the scene like a creepy rave. The kobolds' eyes flickered open, now glowing with an eerie undead light. They were back, but not exactly alive. With a wave of his hand, the main character revealed his new class, Necromancer, like he was swiping right on a dating app for the undead. The undead kobolds bowed down, showing their respect or maybe just their necks. The protagonist mused about how easy it was to switch classes with his past life memories, like he was changing outfits. But he wasn't done yet. There was still a hidden class on the first floor he needed to snag, like a gamer hunting for the last achievement. The undead kobolds gave him a look, like they were waiting for instructions or maybe just snacks. More kobolds approached, probably thinking they were about to have a nice chat. Spoiler, they were wrong. The protagonist gave them a look, like a chef eyeing ingredients for his next dish. He ordered his undead skeleton to take care of the kobolds, like he was giving out a very final homework assignment. The undead went to work, turning the kobolds into a pile of defeated foes. It was a massacre, but with less screaming and more crunching. Moments later, the protagonist stood with even more undead kobolds, checking off his quest like a pro. He remembered this place and knew he was close to his goal. He looked around, scanning the area like a detective on a mission. Then he spotted it, a cabin hidden in plain sight. He had found it like a kid spotting the last Easter egg. He opened the door, stepping inside like he owned the place, which, at this point, he kinda did. Inside, everything was untouched, like a time capsule of creepiness. He was thankful no one had disturbed it, like finding your snacks untouched in the office fridge. He told his undead crew to wait outside, like a dad telling his kids to stay in the car while he checked something out. He stomped on the floor, revealing a hidden staircase. It was like finding a secret level in a video game. Bingo! He had found the hidden class on the first floor, like hitting the jackpot on a slot machine. He walked down the stairs, leaving behind mana stones like breadcrumbs for his undead friends to follow. He mused about how a necromancer was a high-ranking class, a mage that used souls. It was like being the CEO of the undead. Finally, he reached a coffin, the final prize, a spirit masterclass like the ultimate trophy in his collection. The ultimate trophy was in sight, and he couldn't help but marvel at the irony. The very first spirit master, hiding out in a class-changing coffin like some kind of gothic Easter egg. He stepped closer, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. With a deep breath, he slid the coffin door open, half expecting some dramatic music to kick in. But all he got was silence, thick and heavy, like the air before a storm. Silence shattered as an undead figure sprung out of the coffin, like a jack-in-the-box from hell. He stumbled back, heart pounding, as the figure loomed over him. He barely had time to process the sudden ambush when he realized who, or rather, what was standing in front of him. The undead figure was none other than Vulcan, the legendary spirit master. Vulcan's voice echoed, like a bad horror movie, as he demanded to know if he was his descendant. He could practically hear the dramatic dun-dun-dun in the background. Out of nowhere, Vulcan drops the big question, asking if the main character is his descendant, setting the stage for a wild reunion. The main character just smirks and casually drops a long time no see, making it clear this isn't their first rodeo with the undead legend. Vulcan, now rocking some glasses, leans in for a closer look, trying to piece together the puzzle in front of him. Vulcan admits it's a bit awkward that the main character isn't shocked to see a skeleton, but the main character fires back, saying should a necromancer really be surprised by a skeleton? The main character reveals he read Vulcan's journal, so he's way past the surprise stage, setting up some serious backstory. He drops the bombshell that he found Vulcan's hidden journal, a spirit master guide, though he hasn't read it in this life. The main character spills the tea on how he hit rock bottom after switching classes, found the journal, and bounced back to the first floor. He confesses he became a spirit master but failed to summon Vulcan, adding a layer of drama to their reunion. Vulcan confirms the main character's story and drops a casual "I like you," lightening the mood. Vulcan compliments the main character, saying he's way better than the mannerless guy from 10 years ago, which seems to hit a nerve. The main character is visibly shaken, muttering about the skeleton bastard and contemplating destruction. The main character shifts gears, focusing on completing his class change, but Vulcan hits him with a reality check, saying he needs to get to the 10th floor first. Vulcan explains that the Spirit Masterclass is a big deal, higher even than Necromancer, and the main character needs to make a second class change on the 10th floor. The main character shows off his stats, proving he's already leveled up on his own. Vulcan is shocked, praising the main character's talent for changing classes without hitting the 10th floor. Vulcan can't help but compare the main character to some punk, clearly impressed by his skills. The main character, a bit impatient, asks if Vulcan is going to change his class, but Vulcan just laughs it off, saying he got carried away. Vulcan starts gathering mana, hinting at the class change about to go down. As Vulcan starts pulling in the mana, the air around him crackles with energy, setting the stage for something epic. Sitting there, MC becomes the center of a mana storm, the power swirling around him like a whirlwind. MC gazes at an ancient scroll, his mind drifting back to a time long before the tower appeared on Earth. He was the ultimate climber, ruling over the tower with an iron fist. Even as the strongest necromancer, he was always on the hunt for more power, never satisfied with his current strength. Skin and bone summons just weren't cutting it for him anymore. He craved something stronger, something more. Instead of the usual Lich or Death Knight, he dreamed of summoning something entirely different, something unheard of. Then it hit him, a soul. That was the key to unlocking a new level of power. Vulcan decided to call upon the souls of the dead, aiming to create a summon that would surpass all existing ones. After what felt like forever, he finally succeeded, creating the new class Spirit Master. But there was a catch. His body was at its limit, and the Spirit Master class was on the verge of disappearing. With no other options left, he turned to his last resort. Vulcan decided to use necromancy on himself, hoping his descendant would reclaim his honor. To find a climber to follow in his footsteps, he became someone who was half an NPC. Mana concentrates around him, the energy building up for something big. Vulcan watches, intrigued by the unfolding scene. Mana covers him completely, a sign of the transformation taking place. Vulcan reveals that the protagonist is the third Spirit Master, following in the footsteps of a previous rebel. He instructs the protagonist to use the Soul Crucible to capture souls and call upon his summons. With a smile, the protagonist thanks Vulcan for the Soul Crucible, ready to make his first capture. He declares that his first capture will be Vulcan himself, a bold move to secure his power. The protagonist uses the Soul Collect, initiating the process to capture Vulcan's soul. Vulcan's soul begins to emerge from his body, a sight to behold as the protagonist prepares to make his move. Vulcan's soul emerged from his body, and he groaned in pain, struggling to speak. His skeletal form followed, defiant as ever, declaring he wouldn't be captured so easily. The protagonist couldn't help but smile, realizing his plan was working. Suddenly, the mana stones scattered around began to react, glowing with energy. Vulcan, not one to go down without a fight, flipped off the protagonist, mentioning something about Earth customs and hell. But it was too late, as Vulcan's soul was pulled towards the barrier. He was dragged into the magical barrier, his soul trapped within. Vulcan was surprised, muttering about magic, clearly not expecting this turn of events. The protagonist walked over, asking Vulcan if he found his new prison comfortable, explaining how he used a low-class spell to create a personal prison. Vulcan scoffed, claiming he could break the magic any time, but the protagonist wasn't having it. With an evil smile, the protagonist hinted that there was more to his plan than met the eye. He revealed that he had scattered kobold mana stones on the way, setting a trap that Vulcan had just sprung. The protagonist challenged Vulcan, asking if he could really break free before being captured. Vulcan was taken aback, wondering how a first-floor climber could have such skill and tactics. The protagonist revealed that he had failed in his previous life but was determined to capture Vulcan this time. Vulcan was shocked, muttering about a previous life and refusing to believe it. The protagonist took off his hood, asking if he was still the second Spirit Master or if he should be deemed as the third. Vulcan was stunned, recognizing the protagonist as Cha Jinhyuk. The protagonist initiated the Soul Collect, and Vulcan could only scream in denial as his soul was captured. With Vulcan's soul in his grasp, the protagonist wasted no time, immediately beginning to absorb it. The Soul Collect was complete, leaving Vulcan's body empty and lifeless. Vulcan's once mighty form was now nothing more than an undead skeleton, a hollow shell of his former self. The protagonist smiled, telling Vulcan not to be too upset, as now that he was with him, everything he had ever wanted would come true. Cha steps out of the cabin, greeted by his undead skeleton crew. They're just hanging out, doing their skeleton thing, waiting for their next orders. Cha drops some knowledge bombs. Gods and demons can't just waltz into the room of class change. It's like the ultimate VIP section with a super strict bouncer policy. He's not done yet, promising to show something big even without anyone pestering him. The undead skeletons start moving, probably getting ready for whatever Cha has planned next. Cha looks at his skeleton squad and ponders if he even needs skeleton soldiers anymore. They've been good company, but maybe it's time for an upgrade. With a raise of his hand, Cha is about to do something big. The skeletons better brace themselves. Cha commands them to shatter, and just like that, the skeletons start disappearing. It's like watching a magic trick, but way cooler. Cha taps into his inner core magic, and with a dramatic pause, he commands the souls to awaken. Things are about to get interesting. Souls start coming out, floating around like they're ready for whatever Cha has in store. The souls begin to take form, gathering around Cha like he's the main attraction. And honestly, he kind of is. Cha realizes these souls can't speak either, but they're still pretty cool to have around. Suddenly, a voice calls out, calling Cha a bastard. Drama alert. Who could it be? Vulcan makes his grand entrance, looking all kinds of furious. He's not happy, and he's about to let Cha know it. Vulcan is mad. Really mad. How dare Cha use him as a spirit soldier? The audacity. Vulcan is shaking with rage. Cha checks out Vulcan's new form, commenting on how handsome he must have been back in the day. Smooth move, Cha. Vulcan surges with power, vowing not to leave Cha be. He's the first spirit master, and he won't be underestimated. Vulcan starts trembling, his power fluctuating. Something's not right, and it's about to go down. Vulcan falls to his knees, coughing and huffing. Cha warns him not to overdo it, reminding Vulcan that he's only alive because of Cha's mana. If Cha cuts him off, Vulcan's going to dissipate immediately. Talk about a power move. Vulcan glared up at Cha, his mind racing. Obeying him like a dog? That was a hard pill to swallow. Cha locked eyes with Vulcan, his stare intense. What choice did Vulcan really have? Cha reminded Vulcan about his past actions with his familiars. The ones that didn't obey him? Yeah, they got turned into soul orbs and absorbed. Cha hoped Vulcan hadn't forgotten what his trait was. Gluttony. The ultimate power move. Vulcan's thoughts spiraled. If he didn't obey Cha, he'd end up as a snack. Literally. Vulcan gave in, asking Cha what he planned to do next. Cha sensed something and pointed towards the castle. Cha declared they needed to take down the bastard in the castle. The Kobold Lord. The Kobold Lord was their target. Cha was ready for action. At the entrance of the castle, 2 kobold guards stood watch, unaware of what was coming. One of the kobold guards pointed at Cha, sensing danger. The guards readied their spears, preparing for a fight. Cha just smiled, knowing he had this in the bag. Kobold souls emerged, ready to attack the guards. The souls launched their attack on the 2 kobolds. Instantly, the kobolds were crushed. No match for Cha's power. More kobolds appeared on top of the castle, ready to jump into the fray. 30 kobold spirit soldiers descended, but Cha wasn't worried. Kobolds were no longer a match for him. Cha wasn't even breaking a sweat. Grabbing his spear, he smirked, thinking about how easy this was going to be. After all, he had a hidden class now, and these kobolds didn't stand a chance. Looking up, Cha demanded to be taken to their lord, calling them scum with a confident grin. Suddenly, the castle shook, as if something massive was approaching. Out of the shadows emerged the Kobold Lord, towering and menacing. The Kobold Lord sensed an intruder and turned around, his eyes narrowing. He barked orders to prepare the offerings quickly, his voice echoing through the castle. Cha wasn't waiting around. He sprang into action, taking down kobolds left and right. The kobolds didn't stand a chance. They were being destroyed easily, their numbers dwindling rapidly. One kobold was stunned, frozen in place as it watched its comrades fall. Cha appeared right behind it, his presence unseen until it was too late. With a swift motion, Cha snapped its neck, adding another kobold to his tally. The ceiling above them opened, revealing a dark void. Kobolds jumped out from the darkness, attacking Cha with ferocity. One of them was swiftly pierced through by Cha's spear, falling lifelessly. Cha grabbed his sword, ready to continue the fight. In an instant, he cut the remaining kobolds into pieces, his movements precise and deadly. Cha smirked, thinking about how great it was to have a hidden class, making him nearly untouchable. But then he felt a powerful aura. Turning back, he sensed something ominous approaching. The ominous aura grew stronger, sending chills down his spine. It was close, too close, and it was coming from the room where the Kobold Lord was. Suddenly, the peak of evil appeared, cheering him on with glowing batons, like a creepy hype man from the shadows. The peak of evil was rooting for him, but he wasn't having it. He didn't need cheering from some old man with hairy legs. With determination, he marched forward, ready to claim victory no matter what. Meanwhile, the Kobold Lord was in a frenzy, stabbing a corpse and chanting for more, like a villain on a power trip. He ranted about glory and death, clearly not satisfied with the current offerings. As he dragged someone screaming for release, he wondered if this would be the next offering. His eyes widened as he realized it was a woman, and not just any woman, but a dakibi. A mischievous grin spread across his face. A dakibi would be a much better offering than any human. He grabbed the dakibi, laughing maniacally, thinking about the power he would gain from the sacrifice. Suddenly, a light pierced through his hand, interrupting his dark ritual. From the second floor, he looked down, realizing he had been spotted by the intruder. The Kobold Lord shouted, recognizing him as the intruder who dared to interrupt his plans. He smirked, knowing that whatever dark ritual was happening, it was about to fail spectacularly. The Kobold Lord glared up at the main character, his eyes narrowing with recognition and disdain. The Kobold Lord's expression twisted into one of pure rage as he identified the intruder before him. The main character smirked, unfazed by the Kobold Lord's outburst, and retorted that he looked exactly like the scum leader he was. The Kobold Lord shouted, declaring himself as Callum, the king of all kobolds, and demanded respect from the human. The main character scoffed, calling Callum way too arrogant for a first-floor monster, and challenged him to make him show respect. Meanwhile, a dakibi watched from the sidelines, confused but noticing that the Kobold Lord was distracted by the human. Seeing an opportunity, the dakibi turned, realizing this was her chance to escape. The dakibi bolted away, seizing the moment to make her getaway. The Kobold Lord roared in anger, calling out to the death-observing demon for strength as he gathered red mana. The main character's eyes widened slightly, intrigued by the mention of the death-observing demon. Callum, fueled by his rage, unleashed his attack, summoning a volley of corpse spears. The spears hurtled through the air, targeting the fleeing dakibi. In a stroke of bad luck, the dakibi tripped, stumbling to the ground as the spears closed in above her. She looked up in terror, realizing the spears were about to strike her down. The dakibi's eyes widened in fear, the thought of dying there and then flashing through her mind. The main character, seeing the danger, bolted towards the dakibi. With precise strikes, he destroyed the corpse spears, saving the dakibi from certain doom. With the dakibi safe, Callum stood frozen in shock, his attack effortlessly thwarted. Callum couldn't believe it. The main character just casually kicked his attack away like it was nothing. The dakibi stammered her thanks, but the main character cut her off, urging her to run and find safety. Something about the dakibi caught his eye. Those horns, she wasn't just any creature. She was a dakibi, a powerful species from the 100th floor. Dakibi never left their floor, especially not a young one like her. Something must have gone down for her to be here. The main character wiped his brow, wondering what chaos awaited on the 100th floor. He decided to save her, at least to get some intel later. Callum wasn't having it. He yelled about the main character messing with his offering to Jinwei. The main character told the dakibi to hide if she wanted to live. He wasn't saving her twice. She nodded and dashed off. Callum, furious, turned his magic on two nearby kobolds, preparing a fresh corpse bomb. The kobolds glowed ominously as Callum declared his attack. Corpse bomb incoming. The explosion rocked the area, but the main character evaded with ease, ready for his next move. Callum barely had time to react. The main character was already upon him, fist ready to strike. With a powerful punch, the main character sent Callum flying, criticizing his poor mana control. Callum crashed to the ground, stunned. How could a first-floor climber be this strong? Before Callum could even catch his breath, Cha was already in his face, demanding to know what he was doing. They had just started, and Callum was already pulling out the big guns. Sweat poured down Callum's face as he scrambled to his feet, clearly feeling the pressure. With a desperate cry, Callum called upon his spell, summoning an observing demon and begging for redemption. Blood began to swirl and form around them, the air thick with tension and the metallic scent of magic. Suddenly, the blood shot upwards, taking Cha by surprise. The blood solidified, grabbing Cha's arm and holding him tightly. Cha struggled against the demonic blood form, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Cha couldn't believe his eyes. A blood golem stood before him, a high-level familiar that Callum shouldn't have been able to summon. The blood golem slammed into the ground, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Callum laughed maniacally, reveling in his newfound power and Cha's shock. Cha lay on the ground, looking up at Callum, who boasted about his strongest seance. Cha was confused. What did Callum mean by seance? Cha's confusion turned to anger as he realized the gravity of the situation. He demanded to know who Callum thought he was talking to. Suddenly, souls began to emerge, surrounding the blood golem. More and more kobold souls appeared, their eerie glow illuminating the battlefield. Cha declared that he would show Callum what a true seance was. The souls entered the blood golem, infusing it with their power. The blood golem grew larger and more menacing, its power increasing with each soul absorbed. With a final surge of power, the blood golem exploded, releasing the kobold souls in a spectacular display of magic. As the dust settled from the blood golem's explosion, Callum stood there sweating, his breath ragged. He let out a shaky sigh, then another, trying to process what just happened. Suddenly, blood began to rain from the sky as Callum's voice echoed in disbelief. He couldn't comprehend how his prized blood golem was destroyed so effortlessly. The protagonist stepped forward, his voice steady and cold. Even if Callum was a lord among monsters, a blood golem was beyond his capabilities. His gaze shifted to the death-observing demon, who seemed startled by the accusation. The protagonist's voice was sharp as he addressed the demon by name, Bune. Bune nodded silently, confirming the protagonist's suspicions. The death-observing demon had indeed played a role in this twisted game. The protagonist continued, explaining that Bune had summoned the blood golem when he saw him fighting one of his believers. It was a test, a twisted game of power. He pointed out that Bune was now depleted of mana, forced to summon the golem against his will. Callum was just a pawn in this deadly game. Callum freaked out, screaming that there was no way he would be defeated. He vowed that someone would avenge him even if he died. The protagonist sent the kobold souls away, telling them to make sure of it. He had a lot to tell them, a message that needed to be delivered. The kobold souls grabbed Callum, who struggled against them, screaming for them to let go. He was their king after all, and they dared to defy him. As Callum was lifted into the air, he called out to Bune, the death-observing demon, begging for help. The protagonist's voice was cold as he addressed Bune, telling him that this was the end for his toy. He had brought this upon himself by testing him, so he had no right to complain. He looked back at Callum, his voice filled with a chilling promise. On top of that, he would make sure Callum paid for trying to test him in the first place. Bune, the death-observing demon, let out a laugh, finding the situation amusing. The protagonist closed his hand, sealing Callum's fate. Blood splattered everywhere, painting a grim picture of the battle's end. Callum was destroyed, his blood dripping down, marking the end of his reign as the Kobold Lord. With Callum's reign of terror officially over, Cha strolled up to the fallen body, nudging it with his foot. He leaned in, checking if the former Kobold Lord was still breathing. Suddenly, a faint glow began to emanate from Callum's body. His soul, a shimmering essence, started to rise, detaching itself from the lifeless form. It hovered in the air, a ghostly remnant of the once fearsome Kobold Lord. Cha didn't hesitate. He reached out, his hand passing through the spectral form as he tried to grab the soul. Callum's essence resisted, a faint echo of his voice crying out in protest. But Cha was determined, his grip tightening as he pulled the soul closer. With a sigh, Cha began the process of absorbing Callum's soul. As the soul orb formed in his hand, Cha explained that this was one of the basic skills of a necromancer. It allowed him to collect souls and create medicine from them, a useful ability but one that required a certain detachment. With the soul orb secured, Cha popped it into his mouth, swallowing it with a grin. Pause. Cha checked his stats, a frown crossing his face as he saw the results. It wasn't as good as he thought it would be, but he shook it off, reminding himself that this wouldn't mean anything once he passed the 5th floor. As he looked around, he noticed a figure approaching. He turned his attention to the newcomer, his expression unreadable. Haryu, the Dakibi, approached Cha with a grateful smile. She thanked him for saving her, her voice soft but sincere. She introduced herself, her eyes reflecting her gratitude. Cha brushed off her thanks, explaining that he was just there to take care of the Kobold Lord. But Haryu insisted, her gratitude genuine. She wanted to thank him for saving her life. Cha's expression turned serious as he warned her about the dangers of trusting strangers. He pointed out that if he were a bad guy, he could easily kill or sell a Dakibi like her. Haryu's gaze intensified as she responded to Cha's warning. She assured him that if such a situation were to arise, she would handle it herself. Her voice was steady, her resolve clear. Cha sighed, a hint of amusement in his eyes. He noted that when it came to favors and revenge, Dakibi were known for paying back their dues. It was just like her to say something like that. Cha then asked Haryu a question that had been on his mind. He wanted to know why someone like her, a Dakibi, should be on the 1st floor in a place like this. Haryu's expression turned serious as she revealed that someone had attacked the Dakibi village on the 1st floor. Her voice was steady, but Cha could sense the underlying tension. Cha's thoughts raced as he processed this information. Dakibi were a pretty strong species within the tower. Even as a climber, it wouldn't be easy to bother them like that. This was a serious situation, and he needed to figure out his next move. Cha's mind was racing, connecting the dots. If someone was bold enough to mess with the Dakibi, they had to be major players. Could it be one of the 4 great species? The 4 great species were the big shots of the tower. The giants, dragons, demons, and angels, each a force to be reckoned with. Whoever was behind this had to be backed by one of them or have some serious connections. Then there was 9-star. Maybe someone from their guild was involved. Cha gritted his teeth, frustration building. Those bastards were really pushing their luck. Haryu, noticing his distress, asked if he was okay. Cha brushed it off, saying it was nothing, and started to leave. Haryu, looking a bit lost, asked where he was going. Cha turned back, a bit exasperated. Did she really want to stay in this blood-soaked mess? Haryu quickly changed her mind, saying she'd like to come with him after all. Cha thought about it. She was young, but having a Dakibi in his party could be useful. He walked over to her, warning that he wouldn't always be able to protect her like this. Haryu insisted she could take care of herself. Cha pointed out that she had almost been killed by the Kobold Lord just moments ago. Haryu argued that it was because she let her guard down. Cha sighed and agreed to let her come with him. He realized he'd need to get some new clothes. Cha glanced at Callum's body, a somber look on his face. He noticed something, an equipment item? Outside the destroyed castle, the scene was one of chaos and ruin. Amidst the chaos, the main character and Haryu strolled through the wreckage, decked out in fresh gear like they were ready for a fashion show instead of a battle. Suddenly, a portal popped up out of nowhere, like a glitch in a video game. And then, something decided to make its grand entrance, popping out of the portal like it was the latest trend. Vulcan appeared, surrounded by kobold souls, announcing that his job was done, and there were no living kobolds left in the castle. The main character gave Vulcan a nod of approval, while Haryu couldn't help but wonder who this mysterious figure was. Vulcan, surprised, asked who this young one was and if she could see him. Haryu confirmed that some Dakibi had a high affinity with souls. The main character, intrigued, wondered if Haryu was a special Dakibi. He pondered using his gluttony ability to absorb her power but decided it was better to keep her by his side and train her for the time being. A status bar suddenly popped up, like a notification on a phone. It was a monster wave quest, and the main character couldn't help but smile. Bingo! He had found his next challenge. Vulcan and Haryu couldn't believe it. A monster wave? And he was actually considering accepting it? The main character explained that if he wasn't going to, there would have been no point in coming all the way there to defeat a lord. Even the peak of all evil thought it was reckless. Gods and demons alike thought it was reckless. But the death-observing demon was willing to give the main character a reward if he ranked first in contributing. The main character couldn't believe that the demon was trying to call it even with this. He decided he would make his decision after seeing the reward. Vulcan couldn't believe him and asked if he really wanted to die. The main character joked that Vulcan would prefer it if he died since he would be free. But he assured Vulcan that he would still be his servant even after his death. Vulcan told him to stop playing around and that it was creepy. Vulcan might have been weirded out, but our guy wasn't playing around. With a determined click, he accepted whatever was coming his way. Suddenly, the vibe in Karol village shifted hard. The sign for the first-floor safety zone might as well have been a neon good luck sign. Panic set in as people realized a monster wave was about to crash the party. The crowd started murmuring, and let's just say it wasn't happy chatter. Someone had accepted the monster wave, and now everyone was about to pay the price. A guy, clearly freaking out, shouted for anyone who had cleared the quest to get to the second floor ASAP, because once the wave started, it was game over. Another guy got grabbed, probably by someone trying to drag him to safety. He wasn't having it though and yelled to let go, still needing help. As if on cue, lightning started forming, because why not add some dramatic lighting to this disaster? Then, a massive portal materialized out of thin air. Nope, not ominous at all. And guess who came out of that portal? Kobolds. Just a casual stroll into the village. But wait, there's more. A crazy amount of kobolds started pouring out, like someone had opened an all-you-can-eat buffet. The crowd lost it. Screams of "it's too late" and "there's too many" filled the air. Absolute chaos. Just when things couldn't get any worse, a huge light appeared in front of them, and the words "tie lost" flashed, because why not add some mystery to the mix? Our main character stepped up, looking ready to throw down. He made it clear that if anyone, with Vulcan and Haryu by his side, he declared he would slaughter the lot of them. And you could tell he wasn't messing around. The crowd was losing it, screaming about who these guys even were and how this was supposed to be a safe floor. Like, hello, kobolds right there, people. Then Cha just casually calls out to the kobold souls like he's summoning an Uber. Rise and shine, he says. Cue the dramatic gasps. A necromancer? On the first floor? How is this even happening? The crowd was freaking out. The summoned souls wasted no time, charging straight at the kobolds like they had a vendetta. Cha just stood there, watching the chaos unfold like it was his favorite Netflix show. Haryu, not one to be left out, piped up asking if she could try her hand at being a slayer. Cha just smirks and tells her to hurry up before the spirit soldiers peace out. But Haryu, ever the optimist, grins and says she's got a plan. She starts conjuring some magic, and you could tell it was about to get real. Cha just watches, intrigued, as Haryu pulls out something unexpected, a pocket plane. Like, where did she even get that? Cha's eyes widened as Haryu pulled out a sleek, gleaming sword from the pocket plane. Like, seriously, where was she hiding that? It wasn't just any sword, it looked straight up legendary. Out of nowhere, a kobold suddenly leapt into the scene, clearly not here to play nice. The little menace lunged straight for Haryu, claws out and looking ready to cause some serious trouble. But Haryu wasn't having it. In one smooth motion, she drew her sword, the blade flashing with an almost eerie glow. Before the kobold could even blink, Haryu sliced it clean in half. Like, who does that? The creature didn't stand a chance. Cha's mind was racing. That sword? Definitely not your average weapon. And Haryu? She handled it like it was nothing, like she was born to wield it. A thought hit Cha like a gut punch. What if the invaders weren't after just anyone? What if they were after her? Cha turned around, his thoughts interrupted by a voice calling out. Someone was approaching, and they didn't sound happy. The guy stepped closer, his expression intense. He demanded to know who Cha thought he was, trying to control the wave like that. Cha just stared back, his face blank, like he wasn't about to take any nonsense. Who did this guy think he was talking to? The stranger introduced himself as Kim Sung-Ti and dropped a name, the White Swallow Guild. Like Cha was supposed to know what that meant. Cha just blinked. The White Swallow. Never heard of them. Sung-Ti looked shocked, like Cha had just committed some kind of crime by not knowing. Sung-Ti dropped another bomb. The White Swallow was connected to the 9-star Pelin siblings, the big shots who ran the so-called Holy Land Guild. Yeah, right. Cha's expression darkened. The Pelin siblings? Those names alone were enough to set him off. What were they doing mixed up in this? Sung-Ti wasn't done. He bragged about his older brother being in the White Swallow and how they were all planning to join up once they hit the 10th floor. Cha's fists clenched. This guy was asking for trouble. Sung-Ti wasn't backing down. He admitted Cha had skills but then tried to play the brother card again. Cha's patience was wearing thin. But Cha wasn't having it. With a swift move, he grabbed Sung-Ti's soul, shutting him down mid-sentence. Sung-Ti was lifted into the air, panic setting in as he struggled. Cha, on the other hand, was cool as a cucumber, saying it was perfect timing since he needed intel. Cha pointed his sword at Sung-Ti, telling him they'd settle things after the wave. He had questions and wasn't letting this slide. Sung-Ti's buddies started shouting, asking why Cha was getting in their way. They were just fellow climbers, but Cha was threatening them for being a bit strong. Cha wasn't bothered. He simply replied that it should be obvious, leaving them confused and frustrated. Cha laid down the law. In the tower, strength was all that mattered. No hitting, killing, or stealing. Those rules were for Earth, not here. Sung-Ti was released, but the tension was far from over. Cha's message was clear, and Sung-Ti knew he was in deep trouble. Sung-Ti begged to be let go, but Cha wasn't done yet. He had a warning for Sung-Ti, one that would leave him shaken. Cha dropped a bombshell. Sung-Ti wasn't even alive. He had only spared him because he needed information. Cha walked away, telling Sung-Ti to stay far away if he didn't want to be killed. Sung-Ti's friends were in shock, calling out his name. They approached Sung-Ti, asking what they were going to do. They couldn't believe Sung-Ti wasn't going to do anything about Cha's threats. Sung-Ti was sweating bullets. He stuttered, trying to find the words, but all that came out was a shaky way. Sung-Ti finally found his voice, shouting that they needed to run away. If Cha caught them again, they were done for. Meanwhile, the kobolds and kobold souls were gearing up for a showdown. The tension was high, and it was clear that things were about to get intense. The kobolds stood ready, their weapons pointed and their eyes locked on the horizon. The battlefield was set, and the air was thick with anticipation. Out of nowhere, the main character and Vulcan came flying in like a couple of superheroes. The kobolds barely had time to react before chaos erupted. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the battlefield, sending debris flying everywhere. The kobolds were thrown into disarray, and the main character and Vulcan landed right in the middle of the chaos. Vulcan couldn't believe the number of kobolds surrounding them. It was like a sea of enemies, and they were right in the middle of it. The main character took charge, telling Vulcan to focus on controlling the situation while he handled the fighting. Vulcan rolled his eyes, muttering about how bossy the main character was. They both unleashed their powers, and the battlefield became a whirlwind of energy and destruction. The kobolds didn't stand a chance against their combined might. Suddenly, skeletons began rising from the ground, adding to the chaos. The kobolds were now facing an entirely new threat. One of the skeletons grabbed a kobold's leg, dragging it into the fray. The kobold let out a terrified shriek as it was pulled into the chaos. More skeletons joined the fight, mobbing a kobold and overwhelming it. The battlefield was now a chaotic mix of kobolds, skeletons, and explosions. The main character ordered Vulcan to turn whatever they killed into skeleton soldiers. Vulcan snapped back, saying he didn't need to be told that. The main character smirked, ready for the next move. With a burst of energy, the main character bolted into action, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. The battlefield was his playground, and he was ready to play. Another massive explosion rocked the battlefield, sending shockwaves through the chaos. The main character and Vulcan were unstoppable, and the kobolds were struggling to keep up. The main character cut through the kobolds like a hot knife through butter, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. The battlefield was his, and he was taking no prisoners. But just as he finished his last strike, Haryu stepped into the fray, her blades cutting through the kobolds like they were made of paper. She was a whirlwind of destruction, her every move precise and deadly. The kobolds, however, were not about to back down. More of them charged at her, their eyes filled with a wild, desperate fury. Haryu huffed, her breath coming in quick, sharp gasps. She thought to herself that there were way too many of them, her eyes scanning the seemingly endless horde. As she was distracted by the sheer number of enemies, a kobold saw its chance and lunged at her from behind, its blade glinting in the dim light. The kobold's blade found its mark, slashing across her back. The pain was sharp and sudden, causing her to stagger slightly. A scream tore from her lips, a mix of pain and frustration. She knew she had to push through, but the wound was a stark reminder of the battle's intensity. The pain was real, but Haryu wasn't about to let it stop her. She thought about how this was nothing compared to what she had been through before. Her mind flashed back to her burning village. The pain she felt then was far greater than this. With a fierce determination, she launched herself at the kobolds, taking them down with ease. This pain was nothing compared to what she had endured. But even the fiercest warriors have their limits. She fell to her knees, panting and exhausted. She gasped for breath, realizing she had reached her limit. Suddenly, a huge explosion behind her lit up the scene, casting a dramatic glow on her determined face. She turned to look, her eyes widening in awe at the sheer power on display. She couldn't believe it. He was just a first-floor climber, yet he was so incredibly strong. Haryu made up her mind. She would follow that human and climb the tower, getting stronger to avenge her village. But first, she had to deal with the kobolds. They attacked her with fierce determination. With a swift and precise strike, something took off the kobold's head with a crackling bolt of electricity. With the last kobold down, Vulcan rushed over, checking on Haryu. The old man's voice was gruff but concerned as he asked if she was all right. Haryu, still catching her breath, managed to respond with a mix of surprise and respect. Pushing herself up, Haryu declared she could handle things on her own. Her determination was clear, even if her voice wavered slightly. Vulcan observed her, impressed by the resolve in her eyes. He wondered what hardships she had endured to be so strong-willed. Haryu started to ask a question but hesitated. Vulcan, curious, prompted her to continue. Haryu revealed that while escaping the 100th floor, no one had tried to help her. She was just relieved that no one had tried to harm her either. With a cold look, Haryu questioned if Vulcan was helping her because he wanted something in return. Vulcan pondered for a moment, considering his response carefully. He explained that spirit soldiers must obey the orders of the spirit master, and that was all there was to it. Haryu seemed to process this information, her expression softening slightly. Vulcan continued, revealing that it was Cha Jinhyuk's orders to ensure she didn't die and to make certain she accomplished her goal. With that, Vulcan announced he was leaving, mentioning that if he didn't assist Cha Jinhyuk more, he would start berating him for not working hard enough. Haryu watched him go, whispering to herself that Cha Jinhyuk was the one that helped her within this tower. Gathering her mana, Haryu vowed to make sure she paid back this debt. A mask began to form around her, glowing with an eerie light. She put the mask on, her form radiating with newfound power. The transformation was complete, and she stood there, emanating an aura of strength and determination. Vulcan looked on in surprise, muttering to himself about the young one's unexpected power. Cha Jinhyuk, observing from a distance, wondered if that was truly Haryu, her form now radiating with an intense power. As Cha Jinhyuk watched, Haryu's transformation left the kobolds utterly stunned, their tiny jaws dropping in shock. Haryu, now masked, radiated an aura so intense it sent chills down the spines of everyone present. In a flash, her body vanished, leaving behind only a blur of motion and a trail of bewildered kobolds. The kobolds scratched their heads, utterly confused by the sudden disappearance of their formidable foe. Before they could react, Haryu struck from behind, her attack swift and merciless. She moved at an insane speed, cutting through kobolds like a hot knife through butter, leaving chaos in her wake. Blood rained down, painting a grim picture of the battlefield as Haryu's rampage continued. With a menacing glare, she scanned the area, her eyes locking onto her next targets. Bolting towards more kobolds, her speed was a blur, a force of nature unleashed. Cha Jinhyuk watched her insane speed, his mind racing with the implications of her power. Cha realized that the ones who attacked her village were aiming for Haryu and that sword, the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. He thought it would be better to keep this a secret, knowing that if she found out she was the reason her village was attacked, it would crush her. With only 1 minute left of the wave, the tension mounted, the battle reaching its climax. Vulcan and Cha Jinhyuk fought side by side with Haryu, their combined efforts turning the tide of the battle. Vulcan shouted to Cha Jinhyuk, pointing out that the wave gate was getting smaller, their window of opportunity closing fast. Cha Jinhyuk smiled, realizing that the last kobold must be the key to ending this wave once and for all. With a flash of determination, Cha Jinhyuk hurled his sword straight at the last kobold, knowing this was the final move needed to shut down this wave for good. The blade found its mark, piercing through the creature with deadly precision. As the kobold fell, the swirling portal behind it began to shrink, its edges flickering like a dying flame. The portal shrank even smaller, collapsing in on itself like a deflating balloon. With a final flicker, the portal vanished completely, and a booming system announcement echoed through the air, declaring the wave officially over. Cha Jinhyuk didn't even flinch, just smirked and muttered to himself about how it was obvious he'd pull through. Vulcan shook his head, staring at Cha like he'd just witnessed something unreal, muttering about how he was an absolute monster. Haryu, the Dakibi, let out a shaky breath, her strength giving out as she whispered that it was finally over. Her legs buckled beneath her, exhaustion taking its toll as she crumpled to the ground. Cha moved fast, catching her before she hit the dirt, scolding her for pushing herself too hard with skills she shouldn't have been using while exhausted. Haryu fluttered her eyes open, her cheeks flushing as she stammered out a grateful thank you. Suddenly, glowing status bars popped up in the air, signaling the rewards for their hard-earned victory. The rankings flashed before them, showing the top 3 contributors to this wave's success. Cha smirked at the results, rubbing his hands together as he joked about finally getting paid for all this hard work. The battlefield was littered with the bodies of kobolds, a clear sign that the wave had come to an end. Cha Jinhyuk had earned the title of Kobold Slayer, gaining a boost of 5 to all his stats and 500 points to his name. As he read through his new stats, he couldn't help but feel a bit underwhelmed. But then he realized that accomplishment points would contribute to all his stats, and that was something to look forward to. With skills like All-Master and Gluttony, he knew his stats would only continue to grow. The future was looking bright. The system announced that Cha Jinhyuk had contributed the most during the wave, a fact that didn't surprise anyone. Securing first place, he was rewarded with an item. Haryu came in second, her excitement palpable as she received her reward. Cha Jinhyuk called Vulcan over, who approached with a hint of reluctance, mentioning it would be hard to use him as a spirit soldier. Haryu, watching the exchange, stepped forward with a request of her own. She asked Cha Jinhyuk to take her reward as well, a symbol of their future together. Cha Jinhyuk's cautious stare didn't waver as he considered her offer. He apologized, explaining that he had been betrayed before and didn't trust easily. He told her she could come with him, but he needed her to earn his trust first. Haryu, sweating slightly, understood the weight of his words and the value of the second-place reward. Cha Jinhyuk made it clear that he didn't want to be betrayed again and needed her to prove her trustworthiness. Haryu looked down, deep in thought, as she summoned something. Vulcan's eyes widened as he saw what she had summoned, clearly shocked by the sight. Haryu handed over the item along with her Dakibi mask, a gesture that left everyone in awe. She told Cha Jinhyuk to take it, a symbol of her commitment to their future together. As Cha Jinhyuk held the mask, Vulcan's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. An outsider was about to receive a Dakibi mask, something unheard of in their world. Vulcan was ready to intervene, but the moment passed as quickly as it came. Cha Jin-hyuk knew the significance of the mask. It wasn't just a piece of art, it was the essence of a Dakibi's power, and it was given to their once-in-a-lifetime partner when proposing. This was a big deal. Cha Jin-hyuk was stunned. Why was he being given this? The weight of the situation hit him hard. This wasn't just a gift, it was a symbol of trust and commitment. Haryu explained that it was the price for saving her life twice. It was also proof that she wouldn't betray him. Her words were firm, and her eyes were steady. Cha Jin-hyuk knew the mask was worth more than that. He felt like there must be another purpose, something deeper that he wasn't seeing yet. Haryu's voice was cold and determined. Revenge. That was her purpose. It was all that was left for her. Cha Jin-hyuk echoed her words, questioning what she meant by revenge. He needed to understand her motives. Haryu didn't go into details, but she revealed that her village was burned down. She tried to look for survivors, but she couldn't find any. The pain in her voice was evident. She was probably the last Dakibi. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. As the last surviving Dakibi, she needed to avenge her dead kind. She pleaded with Cha Jin-hyuk to let her climb the tower with him. Her desperation was palpable. Cha Jin-hyuk understood her need for revenge. It was a feeling he knew all too well. He saw a reflection of himself in her. She was like him, driven by a need for vengeance. Cha Jin-hyuk grabbed the mask and warned her that she would be dead if she betrayed him. His voice was stern, and his grip was firm. He told her not to care if he didn't have the mask. It wasn't her lifeline or anything. He wanted her to understand that her life was her own, not tied to the mask. Haryu, now cheerful, agreed excitedly to climb with him. Her mood had shifted, and she was ready for the journey ahead. Cha Jin-hyuk was stunned by her sudden change in demeanor. It was a lot to take in, but he knew one thing for sure: this journey was going to be interesting. Cha Jin-hyuk was still reeling from her sudden change in attitude, but he brushed it off with a casual toss of some items into the air, muttering that she could call him whatever she wanted. The items popped open, revealing their contents. Inside were a mana ring, a mana earring, and a mana necklace. The system info revealed that the ring boosted mana by 5 and reduced consumption by 10%, while the necklace had similar stats but with a 20% reduction in consumption. Vulcan nodded approvingly, commenting on how good the items were. Haryu, the Dakibi, echoed his sentiment, agreeing that those were indeed good finds. Cha Jin-hyuk put on the items, with Vulcan explaining that they were perfect for necromancers who used mana to maintain armies, increasing the quality and quantity of summons by 5%. Cha Jin-hyuk then turned to Byun, asking how long he was going to stay. He reminded Byun of his promise to give him a reward, prompting Byun to suggest they go somewhere else. Following Byun's suggestion, they headed to the city. Once there, they found the town eerily empty. Vulcan remarked on how empty the town was, and Cha Jin-hyuk speculated that the residents had probably evacuated to the second floor or the forest because of the wave. Byun told Cha Jin-hyuk to stop rushing him, and Cha Jin-hyuk replied that what Byun had given was good enough and to just spit it out. A purple light suddenly hit the table, revealing a ring. Cha Jin-hyuk, surprised, asked if it was a ring. He grabbed the ring, commenting on how lucky he was with items that day, and decided to take a closer look. As he examined the ring, he suddenly realized what it was and exclaimed in surprise. Vulcan and Haryu, curious and excited, shouted at him, demanding to know what it was. Cha Jin-hyuk revealed that the ring had demonic energy, leaving everyone in shock. Vulcan was left utterly shocked by the revelation, his mind struggling to process the words. Demonic energy? He couldn't believe what Cha Jin-hyuk had just dropped on them. Cha Jin-hyuk explained that demonic energy was a preserve of the demons, a high-class resource of mana that was extremely rare and powerful. To obtain demonic energy, one had to become a slave of the demons. It was granted little by little, but even having just one to use made a huge difference. Cha Jin-hyuk checked his stats and found out he had 10 demonic energy. Byun offered a handshake, a gesture of goodwill and partnership. Cha Jin-hyuk accepted the handshake, deciding that for an item this great, he could forget about Byun's pranks. Vulcan observed the scene and commented that it seemed like Cha Jin-hyuk was ready to climb the tower. Haryu chimed in with an enthusiastic, amazing, Orabioni. Ball watched the interaction with a jealous expression, clearly feeling left out. Ball stepped forward and asked for a handshake, hoping to be included in the camaraderie. Cha Jin-hyuk responded with a smirk, asking if Ball expected a handshake without bringing a gift. Vulcan couldn't help but comment that Cha Jin-hyuk was definitely out of his mind, trying to rip off a demon. Ball, determined to get what he wanted, started looking for items, refusing to give up. Ball decided to create a quest, a challenge that would surely impress Cha Jin-hyuk. Cha Jin-hyuk looked at Ball with a mix of surprise and disbelief. A quest? Was Ball serious? Vulcan was hyped, shouting about some demon quest like it was the ultimate gaming drop. Even the protagonist was low-key shocked by the sudden plot twist. The protagonist was like, "Fine, I'll do you a solid and take your quest," setting up what was about to be a wild ride. But Ball was all, "Nah, only do it if you're feeling it, no pressure," like some chill demon offering life-changing deals. The quest was simple: make a name for himself before hitting the 100th floor. The reward? A recipe for literally anything he wanted. Talk about a cheat code. The protagonist was mind-blown. A recipe for anything? With a demon's recipe, the sky was the limit. He could craft anything, become unstoppable. But the condition was brutal. Fail and he'd become Baal's apostle. No big deal, right? Wrong. It was a huge deal. Still, he wasn't about to let this chance slip away. "All right, Ball, you've got a deal." He extended his hand, sealing the pact. They shook on it. The deal was done. No turning back now. As he opened the door, Vulcan and Haryu were like, "Wait, where are you even going? To the end or what?" But the protagonist had other plans. "Nah, we've got a guy to catch."
Kim Seung-ti.
They were going to track him down and get some answers. "Vulcan, I need you to go grab him." Vulcan was confused but ready. "Where even is this guy?" "I put a spirit soldier on him, so even though he's far, he's still on the 15th floor. The hunt was on." Vulcan was annoyed but hyped. "You could have led with that." "Fine, I'm on it." And just like that, he was gone, stepping through the portal. The protagonist turned to Haryu. "Why don't we chat while we walk?" Haryu was caught off guard. "Pardon? What was he even talking about?" "This mask. I want you to tell me more about it." The protagonist was curious, and Haryu was about to spill some secrets. As they wandered through the forest, the protagonist couldn't help but wonder about the mask and its mysterious powers. Haryu seemed ready to spill the tea, and he was all ears. Haryu finally spilled the beans. The mask was no ordinary accessory. It allowed the wearer to tap into their Dakibi abilities, unleashing some serious supernatural powers. The protagonist connected the dots. Dakibi abilities were all about charms and supernatural powers, right? Haryu nodded, confirming his suspicions. Haryu revealed that with the mask, she could use her supernatural powers and even peek into the future using the ability of foresight. The protagonist wasn't impressed. Foresight? That was a bit of a letdown. If he were to get an ability, he'd want something that could help him throw down in a fight. Haryu shot him a look, her gaze lingering a little longer than necessary. The protagonist called her out, asking why she was staring. Haryu shrugged it off, saying he was just a little odd. Haryu explained that people used to travel for days just to have the elders use their foresight ability. They all wanted a glimpse into the future, hoping to avoid whatever fate awaited them. Most of them were worried about what might happen, and they did whatever they could to dodge their supposed destiny. The protagonist scoffed. Why bother avoiding it? If there was something to worry about, he'd just smash through it. Haryu seemed relieved, saying her ability would suit him pretty well. She dropped a bombshell. Her ability wasn't just any old foresight. It was battle foresight specialized for combat. How's that for useful? The protagonist was so excited that he couldn't contain himself and hugged Haryu tightly. Haryu's face turned red as a tomato. Her cheeks puffed out in embarrassment as she tried to process the sudden affection. The protagonist grinned, saying he was glad it was her. She was the best, and he wouldn't have it any other way. His mind raced with possibilities. With Haryu's battle foresight, they might just stand a chance against the 9-star specializing in combat. Haryu, still flustered from the hug, tried to compose herself, her face still flushed with embarrassment. Haryu, still flustered from the hug, managed to stutter out a thank you, her face still flushed with embarrassment. They shared a moment, but it was interrupted by Ball snapping photos in the background, capturing the awkward yet sweet interaction. Cha Jin-hyuk, realizing they were being watched, shouted at Ball, calling him a stalker and telling him to get lost. Apologizing for his outburst, Cha Jin-hyuk explained he was just glad he could help, which made Haryu feel even more grateful. Cha Jin-hyuk promised to make sure she got the mask's worth and vowed to help her get her revenge, showing his determination to stand by her side. Haryu thanked him once again, wishing the best for both of them, her voice filled with genuine appreciation and hope. Meanwhile, Vulcan was struggling to hold on to someone, telling them to stop resisting as he waited for his master to arrive. Vulcan pinned the person against a tree, informing them that their friends had all left and they should just wait until his master arrived. Vulcan complained about how hard it was to hold the person without killing them, wondering where his master was. Cha Jin-hyuk approached, asking if Vulcan had managed to get the person and telling Vulcan to get out of the way, emphasizing how hard it was to keep the person still. Cha Jin-hyuk pulled out his sword, asking if the person had tried to run away and telling Vulcan to step aside. With a swift motion, Cha Jin-hyuk stabbed near the person's head, making it clear he was serious about getting answers. Cha Jin-hyuk told the person he would give them their sword back, but it depended on how they answered his questions, whether it would be in their hands or their stomach. He repeated his question, making it clear that the person's cooperation would determine their fate. Cha Jin-hyuk demanded to know everything about the White Swallow Guild, his voice firm and unyielding. The person, scared, finally agreed to start talking. After getting the info he needed, Cha Jin-hyuk let Kim Sung-tae leave, who then bolted out like he had a rocket strapped to his back. Vulcan was surprised that Cha Jin-hyuk let him go, but Cha Jin-hyuk had other plans. He was going to destroy the White Swallow Guild anyway. Cha Jin-hyuk started thinking about the bigger picture. There were a lot of small guilds between the 10th and 20th floors, and many of them were probably working with the Holy Kingdom. As they walked, Cha Jin-hyuk mused that crushing all those guilds would be pretty boring. Vulcan agreed, but Cha Jin-hyuk saw an opportunity. Haryu caught on quick, asking if he was talking about Bale's quest. Cha Jin-hyuk confirmed, seeing a chance to clear the quest while taking down the Pelin siblings' influenced guilds. With a plan in mind, Cha Jin-hyuk decided to start heading to the 10th floor. The Pelin siblings wouldn't know what hit them. And so, the crew made their way to the 2nd floor safety zone, where whispers of their arrival had already spread like wildfire. People in the safety zone were buzzing, trying to figure out who these mysterious figures were that had cleared the wave. Some said there were 3 of them, others weren't so sure. As Cha Jin-hyuk and his crew walked in, all eyes were on them. The murmurs grew louder, and people started pointing. One guy took one look at Cha Jin-hyuk and nearly jumped out of his skin. That mask was not something you saw every day. The whispers turned into full-blown chatter. A ghost mask? What was that about? People were intrigued and more than a little freaked out. Someone finally worked up the courage to ask. Were they the ones who cleared the wave? Did they have a guild? What was their name? Cha Jin-hyuk thought about it. He couldn't reveal his real name yet. Not here, not now. So he gave them something else. A name that would stick, that would make them remember. Ghostface. The name Ghostface lingered in the air, and then the crowd erupted. Shock, disbelief, and a whole lot of confusion filled the room. What just happened? People started shouting, demanding answers. Someone yelled for him to wait, to explain himself. Theories began to fly, wild and unchecked. One guy looked terrified as he blurted out his theory. What if Ghostface had committed a crime before coming to the tower? Maybe he was hiding from his past, using the tower as a refuge. Cha Jin-hyuk, aka Ghostface, just smirked under his mask. Hiding your face or identity in the tower was common, and he knew he had everyone's attention now. The news about the wave and his mask had done the trick. With a quick command, he told Vulcan it was time to go. There was still plenty to do, and they couldn't stick around for a chit-chat session. Vulcan responded with a simple, understood. Before anyone could stop them, they were gone. The crowd shouted for them to wait, but it was too late. In a blink, they vanished, leaving everyone stunned. He left just like that. They reappeared in a dense forest, far from the chaos they left behind. They were on the 2nd floor now, a whole new set of challenges waiting for them. Cha Jin-hyuk scanned the area. It looked like nothing they couldn't handle. He turned to Vulcan and asked him to take care of the quest. Vulcan sighed, already guessing what he meant. He wanted those things brought to him alive, didn't he? Cha Jin-hyuk nodded and added that if he could, he should bring Haryu's too. He needed to experiment with demonic energy and told Vulcan to come back quick if he wanted to watch. Vulcan flew off, muttering about how he better not use up all his demonic energy before he got back. Cha Jin-hyuk took off his top robe, ready to get down to business. Haryu looked a bit unsure, asking if it was okay to clear the quest like this. He told her if she didn't like it, she could go get them herself. He wasn't forcing her to do anything. With that out of the way, he couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. Finally, he could use demonic energy like this. He let the power surge through him, the energy of one of the 4 great species, the power of demons. Looking at the swirling ball of energy in his hands, he marveled at the raw power of demonic energy. Suddenly, Haryu's voice cut through his thoughts, calling out to him with urgency. She pointed towards the brush, where a kobold was lurking, ready to pounce. The kobold charged at him with surprising speed, but he saw this as the perfect opportunity to test out his newfound power. With a grin, he prepared to unleash his demonic energy on the unsuspecting creature. He launched the attack, the demonic energy surging towards the kobold with a fierce intensity. The kobold, with surprising agility, managed to dodge the initial blast. Haryu gasped in shock, unable to believe that the kobold had managed to avoid the attack. But he just smiled, knowing that his attack didn't need to make direct impact to be effective. The kobold's shoulder began to crack, the demonic energy taking its toll even without a direct hit. The kobold's body started to break apart, unable to handle the savage power of the demonic energy. Haryu looked on in disbelief as he explained that those unqualified to handle demonic energy couldn't withstand its power. The kobold's body disintegrated before their eyes, showing the devastating effects of the demonic energy. With the kobold's dramatic exit, the stage was set. Cha Jin-hyuk's ghostly visage loomed over the scene, his focus zeroing in on the lingering soul. This was the main event, the real deal. Cha Jin-hyuk had a lightbulb moment. What if he pumped some demonic energy into a spirit soldier? The result? A supercharged, next-level spirit soldier. Without hesitation, he started the infusion, mixing demonic energy into the soul like some kind of supernatural smoothie. But drama struck. The soul wasn't having it, collapsing under the demonic energy's pressure. Cha Jin-hyuk groaned in frustration. Even the soul couldn't handle the heat. Time for Plan B. Cha Jin-hyuk decided to dial back the demonic energy, turning the intensity down from 10 to 1. Maybe a little went a long way. And just like that, success. The perfect fusion was complete, a spirit soldier with a demonic twist. Cha Jin-hyuk couldn't help but admire his handiwork. Haryu chimed in, impressed by the seemingly difficult feat, but Cha Jin-hyuk played it cool, acting like it was no big deal. Cha Jin-hyuk mused that handling pure demonic energy was no walk in the park, especially for non-demons, but he'd cracked the code, making it look easy. Vulcan's eyes widened as he took in the sight. That thing was formed with demonic energy, mind officially blown. Vulcan couldn't contain his excitement. It was a flawless fusion, a spirit soldier with a demonic edge. He dubbed it the Demon Soul Soldier because why not? Cha Jin-hyuk considered the name, Demon Soul Soldier. Not too shabby. Vulcan, ever the proud mentor, beamed at his student's achievement. But then reality hit. Did this mean he had to imbue every captured soul with demonic energy? That sounded like a hassle, especially mid-battle. Wait a minute, Cha Jin-hyuk thought. Did he even need to summon them himself? Maybe there was a loophole. Vulcan, the summoning pro, came to mind. Cha Jin-hyuk admitted that Vulcan's skills in commanding and positioning summons during battle were top-notch. Vulcan, touched by the rare compliment, cleared his throat, pretending not to be flattered. It seemed Cha Jin-hyuk was finally showing some respect to his teacher. But Cha Jin-hyuk, ever the trickster, had other plans. With a mischievous grin, he directed a surge of demonic energy towards Vulcan. Vulcan screamed, caught off guard by the sudden attack. What was Cha Jin-hyuk up to now? Cha Jin-hyuk wasn't done yet. He had a plan, and it involved infusing Vulcan with demonic energy, turning his own spirit soldiers against him. Classic power move. Vulcan was sweating buckets, realizing the gravity of the situation. Cha Jin-hyuk was going all out, using every bit of demonic energy he had. No holding back. A massive pillar of demonic energy surged, and Vulcan screamed Cha Jin-hyuk's name in sheer terror. The stakes just got real. Haryu was freaking out, but Cha Jin-hyuk stayed cool. The first spirit master wasn't going down that easily. Confidence level legendary. Vulcan was determined. If he survived this, he vowed to come back stronger and make Cha Jin-hyuk pay. Classic villain motivation. Cha Jin-hyuk just smiled. He welcomed the challenge. Bring it on, Vulcan. The ultimate showdown was brewing. Energy swirled in a whirl, setting the stage for an epic transformation. The air was thick with anticipation. Vulcan emerged, transformed and ready for battle. The ultimate demon soul soldier was born. Cha Jin-hyuk looked on, proud of his creation. This was his greatest demon soul soldier yet. And the greatest demon soul soldier was none other than Vulcan himself. Plot twist. Vulcan realized the mistake he made. Cha Jin-hyuk had outplayed him, turning his own power against him. Summoning a spirit stronger than himself was Vulcan's biggest blunder as a necromancer. Oops, too late now. Cha Jin-hyuk grabbed his mask, ready to face his angry opponent. He was loving every minute of this. With the mask on, Cha Jin-hyuk was a force to be reckoned with. Vulcan better bring his A game. Cha Jin-hyuk needed an opponent who could match him with the mask on. And Vulcan was just the guy for the job. Vulcan smirked, clearly excited about the challenge ahead. He taunted Cha Jin-hyuk, promising to show him the full power of his demon soul soldiers. With a dramatic flair, Vulcan unleashed a swarm of demonic souls, ready to overwhelm his opponent. Vulcan commanded his demon soul soldiers to attack, confident in his victory. Suddenly, Cha Jin-hyuk's mask began to glow, hinting at a hidden power about to be unleashed. Haryu watched in surprise as Cha Jinhyuk tapped into the powers of the mask, a move that clearly caught her off guard. Cha Jinhyuk observed the demon soul soldiers, noticing that they seemed slower than before. He wondered if it was just him or if the soldiers were genuinely slower. This was the world that Haryu could see, and now he was experiencing it too. With his newfound perception, Cha Jinhyuk effortlessly destroyed the demon soul soldiers, leaving Vulcan's forces in ruins. Vulcan stood frozen, his face a mask of pure shock as he watched his forces crumble before him. The man who had just decimated his army with ease was now locking eyes with him, and Vulcan couldn't believe what he was seeing. Cha Jinhyuk wasn't done yet. With a determined look, he charged forward, his ghostly face set in a grim expression. He might be in a different form now, but he wasn't always like this. Once, he was known as the Death Star, a force to be reckoned with. And with that, he let his fist fly, connecting it squarely with Vulcan's face. The impact was brutal, sending Vulcan reeling. Vulcan hit the ground hard, the impact causing a rumble that shook the very earth beneath them. Cha Jinhyuk stood over him, his voice calm but commanding as he ordered the demon soul soldiers to stand down. Haryu, watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but call out to the old man, her voice laced with concern. Cha Jinhyuk reassured her, explaining that souls like Vulcan's wouldn't die from physical attacks like that. He had seen enough to know that much. But Vulcan, still reeling from the punch, disagreed. That only applied to normal people, he groaned. For him, it hurt like hell when Cha Jinhyuk punched him. Haryu, her curiosity piqued, asked Cha Jinhyuk if he had just lost the mask's power. She had seen the way he moved, the way he fought. It was like nothing she had ever seen before. Cha Jinhyuk, his mind still reeling from the adrenaline of the fight, explained that it felt like everything was slower than him. For a moment, he had become the greatest martial artist, his movements fluid and precise. Haryu, her eyes wide with realization, interrupted him. About that, she said, her voice trailing off as she tried to find the right words. She thought it was just a side effect of the skill failing. She had seen it before, the way the mask's power could warp and twist, creating unexpected consequences. Cha Jinhyuk, his voice laced with disbelief, repeated her words. A side effect? He couldn't believe what he was hearing. If that was just a side effect, then what was the mask supposed to do? He couldn't even begin to imagine the kind of power that would require. Haryu, her voice steady and sure, reminded him that she had told him it serves as battle foresight. Not only should the enemies seem slower, but he should have been able to see their future actions too. Cha Jinhyuk, his mind reeling, couldn't believe what he was hearing. There was no way he was supposed to reach that point. But Haryu, her voice calm and reassuring, told him that if he asked her, he kinda just did. Cha Jinhyuk let out a sigh, still processing the whirlwind of information. She just does it? Like it's no big deal? His mind was officially blown. He had almost forgotten. Haryu wasn't just any dakibi. She was considered a genius even among them. Teaching him would probably be a struggle for her. Haryu asked if he was feeling dizzy or anything. Jinhyuk waved it off, claiming he was fine, though his tone wasn't entirely convincing. Haryu explained that if an untrained dakibi tried using a special skill, they would experience headaches and dizziness. Even she couldn't use foresight whenever she wanted. Jinhyuk's heart sank as Haryu admitted she had been worried since he wasn't even able to activate the skill. Ouch. Jinhyuk winced, feeling like Haryu was hitting all the right spots where it hurt. She quickly backpedaled, trying to reassure him that he would be able to use it soon. Jinhyuk reflected on his miscalculation. He had thought everything was going his way, too excited about becoming unbelievably strong on the second floor. With a pat on Haryu's head, Jinhyuk assured her that he was fine, thanking her for her concern. Meanwhile, Vulcan was sulking in the corner, looking like he had just lost his best friend. The greatest spirit master, reduced to a sulking mess. Vulcan couldn't believe how he had ended up in this situation. Haryu approached Vulcan, her expression softening as she saw his distress. Vulcan, overcome with emotion, hugged Haryu tightly, thanking her for being there to make him feel better, unlike that asshole. Haryu, taken aback by the sudden hug, pointed towards Jinhyuk, trying to redirect the attention. It seemed like they needed Jinhyuk to bring back more kobolds. The situation was getting more complicated by the minute. Haryu recounted what Jinhyuk had said about needing one more kobold before he turned his soul into a spirit orb and ate it. The room fell silent, processing the gravity of the situation. Vulcan, still in shock, couldn't comprehend how things had spiraled to this point. His disbelief echoed through the room. As the dust settled, the quest was finally complete. The group stood there, each lost in their own thoughts, pondering what came next. As the group stood there, Vulcan and his demon soldiers appeared, signaling the third floor had been cleared. With a swift motion, the main character cleared the fourth floor, his determination unwavering. Haryu stood ready, her presence a silent promise of protection and strength. Meanwhile, elsewhere, whispers spread like wildfire. Rumors of a mysterious figure known as Ghostface had reached the fifth floor. It had been 3 days since he entered the forest, and the kobolds had proven to be quite the challenge. From the fifth floor onwards, the stakes were raised with goblins that could use strong poison needles. The main character channeled his mana into the ground, preparing for the impending battle. A goblin lurked in the trees, its eyes locked onto its prey. With a swift motion, the goblin shot a blow dart, aiming straight for the main character. In a flash, the dart was cut in half, falling harmlessly to the ground. Haryu swiftly positioned herself in front of the main character, shielding him from any further attacks. Haryu's intensity flared as she confronted the goblin, her voice dripping with menace. It dared to attack her beloved? The goblin trembled in fear, its confidence shattered by Haryu's overwhelming presence. Above them, Vulcan and his demon soldiers launched their attack, the battle reaching its climax. As Vulcan and his demon soldiers launched their attack, the battle reached its climax. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the battlefield, sending shockwaves through the air and debris flying everywhere. Amidst the chaos, Vulcan casually strolled through the battlefield, praising Haryu for stopping the attack. Haryu, panting and exhausted, managed to explain that the attacker had tried to target Vulcan himself. Haryu, frustrated with herself, muttered that she should have taken down the attacker herself. Vulcan, hearing this, turned his attention to her, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Vulcan paused, sensing something was off. His gaze sharpened as he looked around, trying to pinpoint the source of his unease. Then he saw it, the cruel smile on Haryu's face. Vulcan's eyes widened in shock and confusion, wondering what was going on with her. Vulcan couldn't shake off the unease creeping in. His gaze locked onto Haryu, her strange behavior gnawing at him. He had to ask, her well-being suddenly his top priority. Haryu snapped back to reality, confusion etched on her face. She found herself gripping a sword, her earlier laughter echoing in her mind. What was going on? Why was she holding a sword and laughing like a maniac? Cha Jinhyuk rose, his ghostly face calm yet determined. He had waited a long time for this moment. His preparations were finally complete. A smile crept across his face as he announced that tonight, a monster wave would strike. The tension around the campfire spiked, everyone on edge. Vulcan's eyes widened in disbelief. A monster wave? They were on the fourth floor the night before entering the fifth. This was unexpected. Cha Jinhyuk explained that from the fifth floor onwards, goblins would replace kobolds. They would also need to obtain the Goblin Slayer achievement. The challenges were just beginning. Haryu's curiosity piqued. She asked if they would hunt the Goblin Lord again. Vulcan quickly interjected, reminding her that it wasn't as simple as wanting to hunt it. The Goblin Lord's appearance was unpredictable. Cha Jinhyuk shook his head, a glint of determination in his eyes. They wouldn't need to hunt the Goblin Lord. He knew a method to manually create a wave. The revelation left everyone stunned. Manually create a wave? It seemed impossible, yet Cha Jinhyuk's confidence was unwavering. Vulcan and Haryu exchanged glances, their surprise mirroring each other's. If such a method existed, it would have been common knowledge within the tower. Cha Jinhyuk admitted he had stumbled upon this knowledge by chance. It was a secret he had kept to himself until now. He recalled discovering a crack on the edge of the third or fourth floor while climbing the tower. That was when he had uncovered the method to manually create a wave. Every floor had a central area that spawned monsters. If one found it and channeled their mana into it, it could produce monsters similar to those of a monster wave. Vulcan's eyes narrowed in suspicion. Cha Jinhyuk must have received some benefits from this knowledge without others knowing. But Cha Jinhyuk denied it, stating it was his first time trying it. The monsters on the 300th floor and above were on another scale compared to goblins. Even the 4 great species would struggle to stop them head-on during a wave. Vulcan pointed out the irony. When it was possible to exploit it, Cha Jinhyuk didn't know, and now that he knew, he couldn't exploit it. But Cha Jinhyuk had a different perspective. Yes, things were different now. Cha Jinhyuk's determination was palpable. He was ready to face whatever came their way. Cha Jinhyuk was hyped, ready to shake things up and grind their way to the top. The city was their playground now, and they were about to make some serious waves. People started freaking out, looking around like they'd lost their keys. An earthquake. Inside the tower? That was not on the schedule. Then someone shouted to look over there, and all eyes turned. A massive portal had just crashed the party. People were losing it, screaming about waves and how they'd never seen anything like this on the first floor. Then the goblins started pouring out of the portal like they were late for a sale. It was chaos, pure and simple. People were running around like headless chickens. A wave inside the village? No notifications? This was not the drill they signed up for. The goblins started shooting blow darts like they were in some kind of twisted game show. It was not fun. One guy got hit and went down hard. It was not a good look. Someone rushed over to help, but the guy was out of commission. He couldn't move and panic started setting in. Turns out it was the goblin's paralytic toxin. The guy wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. Things were going from bad to worse. The goblins were closing in, and people were starting to think this was the end of the line. Not exactly the heroic moment they were hoping for. Some blonde guy was having a full-on existential crisis. He couldn't even make it to the 10th floor, and now he was about to bite it here? Rough. Just when things couldn't get any crazier, purple energy came shooting down from the sky like a bad special effect. What was going on? As the purple energy lit up the sky like a bad special effect, the protagonist stepped forward, suggesting that the uninjured guy should take the poisoned guy to a safe place. But before anyone could move, a voice piped up, asking who he was. The protagonist, with his ghostly face, was met with a stunned reaction as someone stammered out his new nickname Ghostface. The crowd began to murmur, spreading the word that Ghostface had appeared, someone who had experienced a wave. The tension was cut with a glimmer of hope as someone shouted that they were saved. The protagonist, with a hint of sarcasm, agreed to save them, but not without telling them to survive and spread rumors about him. Classic hero move, right? The protagonist wasn't done yet. He commanded his demon soul soldiers to awaken and fight, ready to take on whatever came next. The soldiers sprang into action, attacking the goblins with a fierce determination. It was like watching a well-choreographed dance, but with more blood and less grace. Vulcan, not one to be left out, chimed in, asking why the protagonist was taking all the credit. The protagonist, ever the charmer, told Vulcan to stop nagging and make more soldiers. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the scene, leaving everyone stunned and a bit dizzy. Not exactly the best time for a light show. The protagonist noticed that one of his demon soul soldiers was burning. Not exactly the ideal situation, but hey, at least it was a warm thought. As if things weren't complicated enough, a psychic goblin showed up. Because why not add a little more chaos to the mix? Vulcan pointed out that the psychic goblin could attack the soul soldiers. The protagonist, stating the obvious, said he could see that even without Vulcan saying it. If they didn't get rid of the goblin first, things were going to get ugly. The protagonist realized it would be impossible to raid with the psychic goblin in the mix. They needed a game plan and fast. Haryu, perched on top of a house, leaped into action. With an evil smile on her face, she was ready to take on whatever came her way. That evil smile said it all. She was enjoying this a little too much. With a swift motion, she sliced through the psychic goblins like a hot knife through butter. It was a sight to behold, if you were into that sort of thing. Vulcan couldn't help but celebrate. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. But as quickly as the protagonist had appeared, he was gone, vanished into thin air, leaving everyone wondering what had just happened. But just as everyone was left scratching their heads, wondering where he went, Cha Jinhyuk made his grand re-entrance. And oh boy, he wasn't messing around. With a face that could make a ghost jealous, he unleashed his gluttony on a poor, unsuspecting psychic goblin. He scoffed at the idea of such a fiery technique being wasted on a mere goblin. After all, fire affecting a soul? That was some next-level stuff. He wasn't about to let this moment go to waste, urging someone to use it well. And just like that, he switched gears, unleashing a soul fire that had everyone's jaws dropping. With a nod of approval, he commended Haryu, telling her to keep up the good work, just like she did with the goblin psychic. Haryu, with a sinister smile that could curdle milk, seemed to be enjoying the chaos a little too much. Cha Jinhyuk couldn't help but feel a twinge of concern, calling out to Haryu with a hint of worry in his voice. But before he could even blink, her sword started glowing with a pink light that was so bright, it could put a highlighter to shame. The battlefield was suddenly transformed into a scene straight out of a pink tornado disaster movie. Light was radiating everywhere, and it was a sight to behold. Cha Jinhyuk couldn't believe his eyes. Her sword was exuding light like it was some kind of magical artifact. He knew it wasn't ordinary, but this was on a whole other level. He looked at her, his expression a mix of awe and confusion, trying to figure out what was going on. Haryu, now rocking some half-armor like she was ready for a medieval rave, was looking more intense than ever. Cha Jinhyuk's concern was palpable as he called out to her again, his voice laced with a mix of worry and confusion. But Haryu just looked at him with an evil smile, like she was about to drop the mic and walk off stage. And then, In a move that had everyone gasping, she slashed at Cha Jinhyuk, leaving him more confused than a chameleon in a bag of Skittles. Cha Jinhyuk stood there, his mind racing, trying to make sense of what just happened. Out of nowhere, buildings started getting sliced like a hot knife through butter. Not just one, but entire buildings were being sliced in half as if they were made of paper. Goblins were losing their minds, freaking out at the sheer chaos unfolding before their eyes. Buildings came crashing down, adding to the mayhem and destruction. Even the main character's staff wasn't spared, snapping in half under the mysterious force. Then he saw Haryu, holding a sword that seemed to be the source of all the destruction. Cha Jinhyuk couldn't believe his eyes. Was that really a sword? Cha Jinhyuk couldn't believe his eyes. Was that really a sword? Before he could even process what was happening, Haryu was already slashing at him with a wild laugh, clearly enjoying the chaos. Cha barely managed to dodge, but he could feel the wind from the slash grazing his cheek. A massive explosion erupted behind him, sending debris flying everywhere. This was getting out of hand fast. Cha quickly took off his mask, hoping she would recognize him. He yelled out to Haryu, reminding her who he was, but she didn't seem to care. Haryu kept attacking, her sword swings relentless and powerful. Cha was barely keeping up, dodging and weaving as best as he could. He managed to block one of her attacks, but the force sent him skidding back. His arms were shaking from the impact. Cha was starting to realize just how strong Haryu had become. He barely had time to process it before she overpowered him, sending him crashing into the ground. Cha recognized the telepathy instantly. It was Vulcan, but he was in the middle of being blown away by Haryu's slash. Vulcan apologized for the timing, but Cha was too busy trying not to get sliced in half to respond properly. As he struggled to keep up with Haryu's attacks, Cha couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously off. Haryu's evil smile sent chills down his spine. It felt like he was facing the final boss, the last guardian left behind by the Dakibis. Cha grabbed his axe, realizing he couldn't hold back anymore. Most of the monsters were already dead, but he needed to take care of the rest. This was going to be a tough fight. Cha wasn't playing around anymore. He slipped on his mask, locked onto Haryu, and declared it was time to take care of business. With a burst of speed, he dashed forward, ready to end this. Activating his battle foresight, Cha saw every possible move before it happened. Haryu was moving slow, almost like she was struggling to keep up. But that sword she was holding? Cha's intuition was screaming that it was dangerous and could cut him into pieces. In the tower, there were no eternal friends or enemies. Haryu's story was unfortunate, but this was the end. With a heavy heart, Cha swung his axe at Haryu, apologizing as he did. Haryu stood there, her presence haunting Cha's memories. He recalled her smile, the way she used to call him Orabioni. This hesitation was messing with his head, and he cursed under his breath. Haryu grabbed his axe, her grip firm and determined. Suddenly, she let off a burst of energy, catching Cha off guard. Cha couldn't believe it. This energy, it couldn't be. Haryu had battle foresight too? Since when? Before Cha could process it, Haryu slashed at him with a maniacal laugh. The force sent Cha sliding back, his body scraping against the ground. He hit the ground hard, his mind racing with the shock of Haryu's newfound power. As he struggled to recover from the impact, Haryu glanced around, almost as if sizing up the situation. Cha Jinhyuk, his face twisted into that ghostly visage, roared for her to wake up, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Suddenly, skeletal hands burst from the ground, their bony fingers clawing at the air as if answering some unseen call. Cha Jinhyuk wasn't done yet. With a dramatic flourish, he summoned more of those creepy skeletons, declaring they were the Mave Goblins, whatever those are. Classic villain move, am I right? He didn't waste any time, ordering his newly summoned skeleton goblin soldiers to go after Haryu. Talk about a power move. The skeletons swarmed Haryu, climbing all over her like some kind of undead jungle gym. Cha Jinhyuk shouted for them to stop her, his voice echoing with desperation. But Haryu wasn't about to be taken down that easily. She activated her foresight, her eyes glowing with an eerie light as she prepared to counterattack. In a flash, she slashed through all the skeletons, reducing them to mere bones. It was like watching a hot knife through butter, but way more intense. Cha Jinhyuk was left stunned, his ghostly face twisting in shock. He couldn't believe Haryu had sliced through his skeleton soldiers so easily. Was she using battle foresight? His mind raced with the possibilities. He couldn't help but feel a pang of despair. Haryu was too strong, and he wondered how he could possibly win against someone like her. The odds seemed stacked against him, and he was starting to feel the pressure. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the battlefield, sending Cha Jinhyuk flying through the air like a ragdoll. The impact was brutal and he struggled to regain his footing. With a leap, he managed to land on top of a nearby building, his body aching from the explosion. He took a moment to catch his breath, his face etched with concern. As he watched Haryu, he noticed something was off. Her movements were strange, almost erratic. It was like she was struggling with something unseen. Cha Jinhyuk's eyes narrowed as he observed Haryu's weird movements. He couldn't help but wonder if she was tired or if something else was going on. The tension in the air was palpable as he tried to figure out her next move. Then he saw it. Haryu was bleeding from her eyes. Something was definitely wrong with her. The sight sent a chill down his spine, and he knew he had to act fast. Cha Jinhyuk's mind raced as he put two and two together. Was that the rebound Haryu had mentioned earlier? If so, he might just have a chance to turn the tables. Hope flickered in his eyes as he saw an opportunity to gain the upper hand. With renewed determination, he stomped on a glass bottle, the sound echoing like a battle cry. He had to make sure Haryu couldn't use her battle foresight anymore. The game was on, and he was ready to give it his all. With the sound of shattering glass still ringing in his ears, he leapt straight into the fray, ready to take on whatever came next. Haryu watched from a distance, her gaze locked onto the scene unfolding before her. With a playful wave of his finger, he beckoned her to join the chaos, a smirk hidden beneath his ghostly facade. What was he doing? Wasn't she going to jump in already? Without hesitation, Haryu burst through the window, her sword pointed down, ready for battle. The building trembled, the very foundations seeming to shake as the tension escalated. From the shadows, demon soldiers emerged, their eyes locked onto the unfolding scene. One of the soldiers took aim, a blow dart flying through the air with deadly precision. The goblin's paralytic poison, he knew, would be lethal even for a Dakibi like him. Haryu found herself in a tight spot, her usual battle foresight nowhere to be found. Dodging the dart without her abilities seemed nearly impossible. Just when things seemed impossible, Haryu's instincts kicked in like a last-minute caffeine boost. Time seemed to slow down as she unleashed a battle cry that could wake the dead. With a swift motion, her blade flashed, slicing through the air like a hot knife through butter. One goblin found itself abruptly divided into two very equal halves. Not exactly the kind of division you want in a fight. Another goblin met the same fate, horizontal and very much in two pieces. It was like a buy-one-get-one-free deal, but with way more blood. The main character shot her a look of pure frustration. Clearly, he wasn't enjoying the show. Haryu wasn't done yet. She lunged towards him, her blade gleaming with the promise of more goblin sushi. The main character barely managed to dodge, his reflexes finally catching up to the chaos. Haryu leaped into the air, her movements fluid and precise. Gravity seemed optional at this point. Before he could blink, she was already on the attack again, her blade a blur of motion. Someone call the goblin exterminators because Haryu was on a roll. Haryu wasn't done yet, her laughter echoing as she struck with her blade, clearly enjoying this a bit too much. But suddenly, a light shot through the protagonist, leaving him unscathed but definitely confused. Haryu wasn't so lucky, as a dart found its mark, hitting her right in the chest. Haryu stood there, confused and clearly not expecting that turn of events. The protagonist, still standing, explained how he used battle foresight to rebound the attack, making it seem impossible. Turns out, there was a hidden goblin with a blow dart, taking advantage of Haryu's blind spot. The protagonist revealed that the plan was to shoot Haryu with a poison dart through him from her blind spot. Haryu's eyes began to close, the poison taking effect as she started to fall. Down she went, the protagonist barely catching her in time. He let out a sigh of relief, barely managing to hold on to her. But then he felt it, the sensation in his hands slipping away, the paralytic poison kicking in. He called out to the zombie, telling it to bring that thing, the poison dart. The protagonist focused on the poison dart, knowing it was his only chance. He used his gluttony skill on the dart, hoping to gain some tolerance to the poison. And it worked, he obtained tolerance to the paralytic poison, the system announcing his newfound ability. He looked down at Haryu, realizing she had a real annoying power to deal with. Haryu was knocked out, leaving the protagonist to figure out his next move. With Haryu knocked out, the protagonist was left to figure out his next move. Meanwhile, Haryu found herself in a strange dreamland, completely disconnected from reality. Haryu stared at her sword, confusion etched on her face. This wasn't where she had been moments ago. Where was she? Suddenly, a shadowy figure reached out and grabbed her sword, questioning if she was the owner. The figure floated, carrying the Dragon Slayer sword, and repeated the question about its ownership. The figure looked surprised, muttering about Haryu being just a kid. Haryu demanded to know who the figure was, guessing if he was a Dakibi. The figure responded cryptically, saying she was half wrong and half right. Confusion deepened on Haryu's face as she tried to understand the figure's words. In a flash, the sword was at her throat, the figure's intent suddenly serious. The figure held the sword firmly, warning Haryu about something important. He cautioned her about the next time she unsheathed the sword without preparing. Haryu's eyes snapped open, the warning echoing in her mind as she returned to reality. She found herself being carried by the protagonist, with Vulcan nearby, exclaiming that she was awake. The protagonist asked if she was indeed awake. Haryu looked around, confused, asking where they were. The protagonist explained they were in the village on the 6th floor, having just come from the 5th floor safety zone. Haryu, flustered, asked why he was carrying her. The protagonist replied, hinting at a forgotten promise, which upset her. They entered a room, where the protagonist promised to explain everything. Cha Jin-hyuk started laying out the plan, explaining that after checking their gear and stamina on the 6th floor, they would make a beeline for the 10th floor. He dropped some tower knowledge, mentioning that every 10 floors, there was a big city waiting for them. But here was the catch: to get into the city they had to take down a boss monster. Haryu nodded, already knowing about the Great Orc Warrior, a boss monster that was basically a lord-level threat. Haryu was ready to roll as soon as they were healed, but Cha Jin-hyuk shut that down real quick. He dropped a bombshell, saying that from now on, she would have to move independently from the group. Haryu was shocked, wondering what he meant by that. Was he abandoning her? Cha Jin-hyuk clarified that he wasn't abandoning her, but she didn't remember what happened on the 5th floor during the wave. He explained that her sword was a demon sword, with a skill comparable to the ego sword. It messed with her mind while giving her incredible power. He revealed that she had attacked him after losing her reason due to the sword's influence. Cha Jin-hyuk warned her that if she depended on such an unstable power, she would break down before they reached the 10th floor. He gave her a task, to climb up to the 10th floor on her own, without depending on the sword's power. Haryu realized that she had to become stronger, not by relying on the unstable power of the sword, but through her own strength. She declared that she would definitely become strong enough to become his worthy teammate. Cha Jin-hyuk simply replied with an all right, leaving the weight of her words hanging in the air. The next morning found them outside in the middle of the street, ready to face whatever the tower had in store for them next. The morning sun glinted off Haryu's new robe as she thanked Orabioni for the gift. But our boy Cha Jin-hyuk, ever the practical one, pointed out that flaunting her Dakibi vibes while flying solo might not be the best idea. Cha Jin-hyuk continued, saying there was no need to draw unnecessary attention. He mentioned having some business to handle on the 10th floor, so he'd be tied up for a while. Vulcan, lurking somewhere in the shadows, couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness at the thought of being left behind. Haryu, ever the optimist, assured him that she'd catch up soon. Cha Jin-hyuk, with a hint of a smile of his, said he'd be waiting. With a final exchange of goodbyes, they turned and walked away, each heading in their own direction. Cha Jin-hyuk couldn't help but wonder how long it would take for their paths to cross again. As Cha Jin-hyuk wandered off, a few days passed. The 9th floor was littered with orc bodies, a grim reminder of the battles fought. A orc panicked, scurrying around the chaotic scene, its eyes wide with fear. Cha Jin-hyuk appeared, his ghostly face calm as he observed the goblin. He mused that the creature was just big, no different from any other goblin. With a sudden burst of speed, Cha Jin-hyuk charged at an orc, declaring that he had lost his patience. He kicked the orc's neck with precision, sending it reeling. The orc crashed to the ground, defeated. Vulcan chimed in, noting that Cha Jin-hyuk seemed to be getting the hang of it. Cha Jin-hyuk reminded him not to forget to extract the orc demon soul soldiers, as they needed more. Vulcan remarked that creating waves seemed to be part of their natural routine. Cha Jin-hyuk questioned if Vulcan was complaining, but Vulcan clarified that he was actually enjoying it. Vulcan couldn't believe how cold Cha Jin-hyuk was, pointing out that he had never once mentioned anything about Haryu. Cha Jin-hyuk asked what he was talking about. Cha Jin-hyuk stated that he wouldn't have accepted her as an ally if he thought she'd fail. She was strong and would do whatever it took to get her revenge. Cha Jin-hyuk simply replied that he didn't have parents, asking what was wrong with that. Vulcan was surprised, asking what Cha Jin-hyuk meant. Cha Jin-hyuk explained that he was an orphan raised in an orphanage, and that Choi Kyung-hoon was from the same orphanage too. Vulcan was deep in thought, processing the revelation about Cha Jin-hyuk and Choi Kyung-hoon's shared past. Suddenly, his eyes widened as a thought struck him. He reached out and tapped Cha Jin-hyuk on the shoulder, drawing his attention. Vulcan nodded, understanding the weight of Cha Jin-hyuk's past. But Cha Jin-hyuk was taken aback, wondering what had caused such a reaction from Vulcan. Vulcan chuckled, acknowledging Cha Jin-hyuk's usual demeanor. He then surprised Cha Jin-hyuk by offering him a hug. Cha Jin-hyuk pushed Vulcan away, rejecting the pity. Just then, a notification echoed, announcing the completion of the Orc Slayer accomplishment. In a flash, they teleported away from the scene. They arrived on the 10th floor, in the room of trials, ready for the next challenge. Cha Jin-hyuk knew he had to defeat the boss monster to proceed. Vulcan noticed something unusual and pointed it out, intrigued by the unfamiliar sight. Upon closer inspection, Vulcan realized they were looking at the fastest clear records for the trials. Cha Jin-hyuk noted that Vulcan's name wasn't among the records. Vulcan retorted that Cha Jin-hyuk's name was also missing, and most of the records were held by members of the 4 great species. Cha Jin-hyuk suggested they break the record that day, setting a new goal for themselves. Vulcan laughed heartily, agreeing to the challenge and liking the sound of that plan. Cha Jin-hyuk asked if they needed to get ready for battle, preparing for the upcoming challenge. Vulcan assessed the situation and concluded that it was possible to defeat the boss within the time limit. Cha Jin-hyuk instructed Vulcan to use his demon soul soldiers to stop the boss from moving once it spawned. Vulcan agreed and got ready. Vulcan prepared his soul soldiers, strategizing their next move. Cha Jin-hyuk struck the ground, initiating their plan. A magic circle formed beneath them, signaling the start of the battle. As the magic circle hummed beneath them, a massive spear materialized in his grip. Cha Jin-hyuk, with his ghostly visage, wasted no time and readied himself for the battle ahead. With a fierce determination, he declared he would show the power of an all-master. Channeling his energy, he began to enchant the spear with elemental forces. The spear glowed as elements swirled around it, infusing it with raw power. Cha Jin-hyuk's focus was unwavering as he prepared his ultimate weapon. Layer after layer of enchantments were added, each one making the spear more deadly. Piercing, dexterity, resilience, and lethality, each attribute enhanced its formidable presence. He almost forgot the final touch. With a grin, he added the ultimate enchantment, demonic energy. The spear pulsed with dark power, ready to unleash chaos. The spear turned a deadly purple, crackling with demonic energy. It was a sight to behold, a weapon capable of immense destruction. Cha Jin-hyuk and Vulcan stood ready, their eyes locked on the magic circle. The anticipation was palpable as they prepared for the test to begin. A voice echoed, announcing the start of the test. The countdown began. 3, 2. Vulcan's gaze sharpened as the countdown reached 1. The moment of truth was upon them. The test started with a bang as the great orc warrior was summoned. The boss appeared, a towering figure with a massive axe, ready for battle. The orc roared, its presence dominating the arena. This was going to be one heck of a fight. Vulcan didn't hesitate. He commanded his demon soul soldiers to go forth and bind the boss. The soldiers surged forward, their dark energy swirling around the orc. The boss struggled against the binding, but the demon soul soldiers held firm. This was Cha Jin-hyuk's chance. With a fierce look, Cha Jin-hyuk called out the name of his ultimate weapon, Gungnir. The battle was about to reach its climax. The massive magic spear shot toward the boss like a lightning bolt, leaving no time for the enemy to react. The spear struck with precision, cleanly chopping the boss's head off in a single, fluid motion. The boss's body teetered for a moment, suspended in the air as if time itself had paused. Then, with a heavy thud, the headless body crashed to the ground, lifeless and defeated. The timer froze at 0.96 seconds, marking a new record that left everyone in awe. The record was updated instantly, sending shockwaves through the community. Notifications popped up everywhere, alerting everyone on the 8th floor about the unbelievable feat. The best record on the 10th floor wasn't even a second long, leaving everyone stunned. Haryu saw the record and couldn't believe her eyes. If it was Ghostface, the wave killer, then she knew she had to step up her game. She muttered to herself, determined to work harder, and let out a frustrated cry. Meanwhile, Vulcan was overjoyed, laughing loudly at the incredible achievement. He couldn't believe they had broken the records of the 4 great species. Vulcan put his arm around Cha Jin-hyuk, proud of his student's accomplishment. He boasted that even the greatest spirit masters hadn't done what they had just achieved. Cha Jin-hyuk, with a hint of pride, wondered if they were the only ones who had managed to do it. With their mission accomplished, they headed towards the portal, ready for more challenges on the 10th floor. Vulcan eagerly agreed, suggesting they hurry up and wait for Haryu to join them. Just as they were about to step through the portal, a coin flip interrupted their plans. The system announced that the auction had been unlocked, adding a twist to their journey. The coin was caught, its fate sealed. The blonde guy stared at the notification, his eyes narrowing as he processed the new information. This auction could be a game changer. He intently stared at the notification. He muttered, pondering the implications. Ghostface, huh? This auction just got a lot more interesting. The auction got more interesting with the mention of Ghostface. The 10th floor was the first large city that climbers would visit, and it was where the portal back to Earth was located. People who gave up or stopped climbing attained commercial rights and ended up creating the biggest city out of the first 100 floors within the tower. Cha Jin-hyuk decided to sell the rest of his loot and just buy some potions and other consumables. Vulcan mentioned that they were lifting the auction, but the city's marketplace was still thriving. Cha Jin-hyuk acknowledged with a simple yeah. There were people who just lived ordinary lives there. You couldn't buy everything you saw at the auction. The Gold Lich foods stood out among the various shops and stalls. A vendor from the Gold Lich workshop called out, offering weapons. Nearby, the Gold Lich Inn invited weary travelers to come and rest. Vulcan got mad, asking what Gold Lich was. Cha Jin-hyuk casually mentioned that he guessed Vulcan wouldn't know. Cha Jin-hyuk explained that the Gold Lich Company was the top company within the tower that appeared several years ago. It was someone's name, the richest man in the tower, Gold Lich. No one knew his real name, but he possessed unimaginable amounts of gold. It was said that most things that circulated in the tower passed through his hands. Cha Jin-hyuk then asked Vulcan if he didn't say he had some business to take care of. Vulcan confirmed that he was going to get a sponsor. Vulcan was surprised and asked who the sponsor was. Cha Jin-hyuk replied that Vulcan was looking at the sponsor's logos all around them. Vulcan was shocked, realizing that the sponsor was someone incredibly significant. Cha Jin-hyuk confirmed that he was going to have Gold Lich as his sponsor, leaving Vulcan in awe. With Gold Lich as his sponsor, Cha Jin-hyuk stepped into the company, greeted by a welcoming lady. The lady explained that anything of monetary value could be sold and bought there, from weapons and loot to potions and information. Cha Jin-hyuk grabbed a waiting ticket, number 18, and the lady commented on it being a fitting number for him. A man named Halcyon, in charge of the third counter, approached and asked how he could help. Cha Jin-hyuk dropped a sack of money and stated his intention to buy something. As Halcyon asked for his name, Cha Jin-hyuk hesitated, pulling out his mask instead. Cha Jin-hyuk asked if the mask would work as identification. Halcyon freaked out, recognizing the mask and stuttering about the ghost face. Cha Jin-hyuk hushed Halcyon, reminding him that there was a reason he always wore the mask. Halcyon agreed and Cha Jin-hyuk told him to check the money first. There was 3,000 gold, all obtained from the waves. Halcyon was curious about what Cha Jin-hyuk was trying to buy with all that gold. Cha Jin-hyuk revealed that he wanted to buy a meeting with Gold Lich. Halcyon was shocked, stuttering in disbelief at the request to meet with Sir Gold Lich. Still reeling from the shock, Halcyon's mind raced. Was this guy for real? Hadn't he heard the rumors about Sir Gold Lich being a total recluse outside the tower? The protagonist leaned in, reminding Halcyon of his own words. Anything could be bought and sold here, right? Halcyon stammered, his confidence crumbling. Sweat beading on his forehead, Halcyon apologized, but the deal was a no-go. No way, no how. He pressed on, but Halcyon had two solid reasons. First up, Sir Gold Lich was swamped. He asked about the second reason, and Halcyon hesitated, worried it might come off as rude. Halcyon dropped the truth bomb. The cash on offer was chump change compared to Sir Gold Lich's time. 3,000 gold? Peanuts. He seemed to accept defeat, but then he perked up, asking how much it would take to meet the big boss. Halcyon tried to apologize again, but MC cut him off, asking for the price to meet the manager instead. He was on a mission, asking how much it would cost to meet the manager. As they walked up the stairs, Vulcan couldn't help but comment on the absurdity of the situation. Who did this guy think he was, demanding to meet the head honcho like that? The MC asked if Vulcan had any other bright ideas on how to meet Gold Lich, promising to take the criticism like a champ. They reached a door, and MC wondered if this was the place. With a knock, MC announced himself as Ghostface. A voice from inside invited him in. He pushed the door open wide, stepping into the unknown. Inside, Puppet introduced himself as the 10th floor branch. The puppet got straight to the point, asking if MC wanted to meet Sir Gold Lich. But it looked like he was out of luck, as Sir Gold Lich wasn't there. The puppet apologized, saying that what he was offering wasn't enough, but he wasn't having it and asked what else he could do. He told the puppet to call Sir Gold Lich over first, saying that he would definitely become his sponsor once they met. The puppet sighed, saying that he was making bets with his arrogance now. The puppet walked up to MC, saying that he had heard a lot about him, but it didn't feel nice to hear him talk about Sir Gold Lich so casually. The puppet started using strings behind his back, hinting at a hidden power. The puppet explained that with his trait, marionette, he could control anyone entangled in his strings at will. He apologized but said that the masked man would have to leave. The MC looked at the puppet, questioning his arrogance. He grabbed the strings, ready to make his move. He slammed the strings down, wagering the puppet's arrogance and asking if this was still not enough. The puppet was shocked, realizing that MC had nullified his skill that worked on even 18-floor climbers. The puppet, trying to regain composure, said all right and asked what the masked man thought about the mind realm. The puppet put his hands together, creating vibrations of waves, hinting at a new power. Suddenly, they found themselves in another plane, a different realm. The puppet explained that this was the mind realm, a place MC seemed familiar with. MC described it as an infinite realm newly made by separating their soul and mind from the body. The puppet was sweating, shocked that an 18-floor climber knew about the mind realm. The puppet, still sweating from the shock, decided to lay down some rules as he walked towards the protagonist. This dimension wasn't your average playground realities rulebook got tossed out the window. Here, it was all about flexing the strength of your soul and throwing down with whatever life experiences you had in your back pocket. Suddenly, the puppet powered up like a boss, energy surging around him. He dropped the ultimate challenge, beat him in a fight, and he'd try to set up a meeting with Sir Goldlich. Talk about high stakes. Before the protagonist could even blink, threads shot out and wrapped around him, like he was getting prepped for a cosmic game of cat's cradle. But our main character wasn't sweating it. Oh no, he just smirked. The power of one's experience and soul? Please, the puppet was basically bringing a knife to a gunfight. But the puppet wasn't done yet. He tried to pull a fast one, trapping our main character with strings. But Cha Jin-hyuk just smirked. Oh please, as if that would work on him. With a snap, the strings broke like they were nothing. Cha Jin-hyuk was having none of it. He was way ahead of this puppet's game. The strings shattered completely. Cha Jin-hyuk was on a whole other level. The puppet's tricks were laughable to him. The puppet was confused. How could a climber from the 10th floor know about its trait? This wasn't adding up. The puppet was stunned. Cha Jin-hyuk had the mental prowess of a climber from at least the 100th floor, maybe even above the 200th floor. This guy was the real deal. The puppet was shook. Cha Jin-hyuk was legit like top-tier climber material. But he wasn't about to back down. With a snap of his fingers, he declared he'd acknowledge Cha Jin-hyuk's strength. But this was far from over. Suddenly, the water around Cha Jin-hyuk started shaking, like something big was about to go down. Cha Jin-hyuk looked around, totally caught off guard. This was not what he was expecting. Then, out of nowhere, puppets started getting up like a creepy puppet zombie apocalypse. Cha Jin-hyuk looked around, trying to figure out what was happening. This was getting weird. He found himself surrounded by hundreds of puppets. Like, what was this, a puppet convention? The puppet smirked, proudly presenting his puppet army. He was totally flexing his puppet collection. He explained that in the mind realm, experience was everything, and these puppets were the result of his grind. He even had enhanced puppets, souped up with mana, as strong as a climber from the 110th floor. Talk about a glow-up. Cha Jin-hyuk was stunned. These enhanced puppets were no joke, and he was starting to feel the pressure. The puppet smiled, confident that the moment Cha Jin-hyuk entered the mind realm, the winner was already decided. Ghostface was in trouble. With a command, the puppet army charged at Cha Jin-hyuk. This was about to get real. Cha Jin-hyuk braced himself, ready to face the onslaught. There was no turning back now. Cha Jin-hyuk barely had a second to brace himself before the puppets lunged, their wooden fingers digging into his arms like a bunch of overzealous toddlers at a playground. Buried under a pile of puppets, Cha Jin-hyuk could practically hear the dramatic villain monologue in his head. It's the end, they seemed to chant, like a bad pop song stuck on repeat. But just as the puppet started to walk away, leaving Cha Jin-hyuk to his wooden fate, it dropped a plot twist like a hot mic. Injuries in the anime realm don't reflect in the real world. So rest assured, he said, as if that was supposed to make him feel better about his current puppet predicament. Suddenly, a massive explosion of water erupted like a surprise pool party no one asked for. The puppet leader whipped around, his wooden face twisting in shock. What's that? Magic? He stuttered, sounding about as confident as a guy who just realized he forgot his pants. Before he could finish his sentence, something massive emerged from the water, like a boss monster making a grand entrance at a party. The puppet leader took one look and immediately regretted all his life choices. The Lich Mage, he squeaked, sounding like he just saw his ex at a family reunion. Why is the 100th floor boss monster here? He continued, his voice cracking like a teenager hitting puberty. Meanwhile, his puppet army started sinking like they just remembered they forgot to pay their water bill. Cha Jinhyuk, still buried under his puppet pile, couldn't help but smirk. As easy as this is in the mind realm, he thought, watching the puppet leader's meltdown. His puppets screamed in terror, flailing like they were in a bad horror movie. Even if it's the mind realm, Cha Jinhyuk mused, materializing another person takes time, and he had plenty of that now. The puppet leader, meanwhile, was still freaking out about his army of puppet soldiers, screaming like a toddler who just dropped his ice cream. This is a good opportunity, Cha Jinhyuk thought, observing the chaos. Time to show them what a real army looks like. With a grin, he summoned his undead monsters, each one popping up like uninvited guests at a family barbecue. Now this, he said, looking at his undead army, is a real army. With his undead army behind him, he grinned. The moment they entered the mind realm, the winner was already decided. The puppet couldn't help but tremble as he declared that this was the reason for his loss. The puppet's eyes widened as he saw the Lich, the Dullahan, and other unknown monsters. He couldn't believe that they were all boss monsters from beyond the 10th floor. The puppet was at a loss for words. Just who was this guy with a ghost face? The puppet was freaking out. Who the hell was this Gino ghost face? Before he could even process his thoughts, the undead army charged. The puppet was completely overwhelmed, his mind racing with fear and confusion. Suddenly, he snapped back to reality, falling to his knees. He couldn't believe they were back here and he hadn't even released the mind realm. The puppet was in disbelief. There was no way he controlled the mind realm. But the protagonist wasn't having any of it, telling him to stop being a crybaby and get up. He reminded the puppet of their bet. The stakes were high and he wasn't about to let him forget. The protagonist's demand was clear. He needed to meet the Gold Lich. He handed the puppet a letter, the key to his meeting with the Gold Lich. The puppet looked at the letter. Was this really it? The protagonist confirmed, telling him to send that to the Gold Lich. The puppet stared at the letter, doubts creeping in. He muttered about not being in a position to say much since he had already lost, but if there was no reply to the letter, there was nothing more he could do. The protagonist smiled reassuringly, telling the puppet not to worry. There would definitely be a reply. Outside the Lich Company, the puppet promised to contact the protagonist's lodging once he received a response. The protagonist simply acknowledged with a calm okay. They bid the protagonist farewell, wishing him a safe return as he began his journey back. As the protagonist walked through the city, Vulcan noted that the sky had already begun to set, suggesting they head back to their lodging to rest. But the protagonist had other plans, stating they needed to head to their next destination. Vulcan was confused, asking if there was somewhere else they needed to go. The protagonist questioned the efficiency of just sitting around and waiting for the Gold Lich to arrive. Night fell at the White Swallow Guidehouse. Since they needed to kill time, they decided to fulfill their responsibilities as guild members. In the first floor lobby, two females were talking. One asked the other how high she had climbed, and the response was to the 57th floor. The blonde chick mentioned that the other had said she would get new equipment when she hit her quota for the month and told her to finish her food and go climb. The blonde chick pounded the desk, frustrated, asking why they needed to stay at the 10th floor lobby. Someone wondered which stupid bastard would barge into the Holy Kingdom's affiliated guild's main door. The protagonist slammed open the door, making a dramatic entrance. The ladies greeted the protagonist, welcoming him to White Swallow and asking what brought him there today. The protagonist seemed taken aback, questioning why he was there. He then explained that raiding the tower was so difficult and expressed his desire to join a guild. A blonde lady and her hooded friend were just chilling when suddenly, someone showed up wanting to join their crew. Talk about a surprise guest appearance. They paused for a sec, like when you're about to swipe right but then hesitate. They looked at the main character like he was a walking gold mine, thinking about all the power they could get if they recommended a newbie to the guild. They welcomed him in, all excited, asking if he had a referrer or if someone sent him their way. But the main character was like, "Nah, I just came because this is a big guild's affiliate. No referrer needed, thanks." The ladies exchanged a look and smiled evilly, thinking they'd hit the jackpot with a clueless beginner. The blonde lady asked him to show off some skills, and the main character was like, "Skills, huh?" He asked if a coin trick would do, and they were like, "A coin? Really?" He held up the coin, all confident, saying, "All right, with this coin." And then he just bent it with his bare hands. Like, who even does that? The ladies were shocked, like they'd just seen a magic trick gone wrong. With his bare hands? No way. The main character casually mentioned he could also do some basic magic, like it was no big deal. And then, boom, fire in his hand. Yes, magic. He could do basic magic, like lighting a fire with just a snap of his fingers. The ladies stood there, faces blank, totally unimpressed by his fire trick. But then one of them finally spoke up, admitting that yeah, he had a bunch of random little talents. Suddenly, they were all over it, grabbing each other in excitement. His skills right now weren't the point. They saw potential big time. If they could get him to train with them, he might just become a total tycoon. And as if that wasn't enough, they started scheming about how good-looking he was. One lady couldn't help but gush, but the other wasn't having it, cutting her off mid-sentence. Meanwhile, the protagonist was in his own world, thinking that if he could just buy enough time, something big was about to go down soon. Suddenly, a loud noise outside interrupted their moment. Everyone turned, confused and alarmed. What was that sound? A man burst in, frantic and out of breath. Something bad was happening, and they needed to know about it, fast. The man gasped out the news: a spirit monster was going crazy outside, destroying the village. It was an all-hands-on-deck situation. The ladies were shocked. Everyone who had climbed above the 20th floor were all sim moneti. They had to come out right now. But the timing couldn't have been worse. The blonde lady pointed at the protagonist, telling him to wait right there. They would solve this quickly and come back. It was a promise, or at least that's what she said. With that, they closed the door, leaving him alone with his thoughts. The room was quiet, but his mind was racing. He pulled at his ribs, contemplating. If things were about to get real, maybe it was time to bring back the ghost face. Without another thought, he put the mask on, transforming into his ghostly alter ego. It was time to face whatever was coming head-on. Outside, the village was in chaos. Explosions rocked the shopping district, and people were screaming to get away. It was dangerous, and items were getting destroyed left and right. Above it all, Vulcan was floating, looking down at the destruction. Their attacks weren't working, and he was starting to feel the weight of the situation. Vulcan let out a groan, feeling the resentment building up. This wasn't just any monster, it was something more, something personal. The people around him looked confused, unsure of what to do next. The situation was awkward, tense, and getting worse by the second. Vulcan, feeling the weight of everyone's confusion, suddenly blurted out his embarrassment. He hadn't acted in decades, and now he was stuck in this awkward situation, thanks to Cha Jinhyuk. Vulcan fumed internally, blaming Cha Jinhyuk for bringing such shame to the first spirit master. With a sudden outburst, Vulcan lashed out, kicking someone nearby, his frustration boiling over. Cha Jinhyuk, unfazed by Vulcan's tantrum, sent the man flying with a swift motion. The man crashed against the wall, the impact echoing through the room. Cha Jinhyuk scanned the room, muttering to himself about something missing. He wondered where it could be. Suddenly, a man walked in, taken aback by the loud commotion and the chaotic scene before him. The man, startled, couldn't believe what he was seeing. Cha Jinhyuk turned to the man, demanding to know who he was and how he got in. Without waiting for an answer, Cha Jinhyuk grabbed the man by the neck, lifting him effortlessly. Cha Jinhyuk noticed the books scattered around and wondered if what he was looking for could be among them. He told the man he was looking for something and asked if he was affiliated with the Holy Kingdom. Cha Jinhyuk demanded a list of the other guilds and their exact locations. His intent clear: he wanted to find and destroy them. The man, choking, managed to ask if Cha Jinhyuk thought he would be safe after making 2 of the 9 stars his enemies. Cha Jinhyuk, unimpressed, thanked the man for his concern but pointed out that it wasn't the time for him to be worried about someone else. With a squeeze, Cha Jinhyuk tightened his grip, warning the man that he might die if he didn't give him the information right now. The man trembled under Cha Jinhyuk's grip, feeling the weight of his own mortality pressing down on him. With a shaky hand, the man pointed towards the desk, his voice barely a whisper as he tried to comply. Cha Jinhyuk released him, a hint of satisfaction in his voice as he thanked the man for not wasting his time. With a swift motion, Cha Jinhyuk threw the man down, his focus shifting to the desk. He grabbed the papers on the desk, his eyes scanning the contents with intense focus. As he read, his expression darkened, the words on the page clearly striking a chord. The Pelin siblings, their names echoed in his mind as he realized their significance. With a sudden burst of anger, Cha Jinhyuk set the documents ablaze, his voice a low growl as he vowed to make Cain and Carmen pay. He threw the burning papers down, his eyes cold as he promised to slowly destroy them. The entire building was soon engulfed in flames, Cha Jinhyuk's voice echoing as he declared his next target. Meanwhile, Gold Lich, also known as William, was going through his own set of documents, his mind focused on the task at hand. He muttered to himself, wondering if the report from the 10th floor's branch was a presentation. Suddenly, a letter fell out from the stack of documents, catching his attention. He looked at it, his expression one of surprise and curiosity. As he scanned the letter, his eyes widened in shock. The name on the page hit him like a punchline to a bad joke: Ghostface. Gold Lich was left speechless, his mind racing. How did this letter know about his secret identity? This wasn't just a plot twist, it was a full-on cliffhanger. Gold Lich's mind was still reeling from the letter's revelation when chaos erupted. The guild was ablaze, flames devouring everything in sight. Suspicion hung thick in the air. Arson was the likely cause, but the culprit remained a mystery. Witnesses? None left alive to tell the tale. Beck Hallio, the White Swallow Guildmaster, stepped forward, his gaze sharp and calculating. A prospective recruit had caught his attention, their behavior screaming suspicion louder than a toddler denied candy. The blonde lady, her voice trembling, described the suspect as a thin male. Beck pressed further, demanding details about the man's appearance and attire. The ladies exchanged glances, their descriptions conflicting. One insisted he was handsome with a high nose bridge, while the other swore he was ugly with a stumpy nose. Confusion reigned as they stared at each other, the inconsistency in their stories raising more questions than answers. The blonde lady's eyes widened as a thought struck her. She recalled the mysterious man, his face flickering in her memory like a candle in the wind. Her breath hitched as she pieced it together. There was no way it couldn't be. The man's disguise was too perfect, his true identity hidden beneath layers of deception. She whispered to herself, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Hallucination magic it had to be. The man had used it to alter his appearance, making each witness see him differently. The next day, MC, his true form hidden beneath the spell. He blended in seamlessly, his presence unknown to those around him. Vulcan, the ever-loyal companion, returned, his presence announced with a simple greeting. Cha Jinhyuk acknowledged his return with a nod, praising his work. Rumors of a scary ghost had been circulating, and Vulcan couldn't help but tease his master about it. Cha Jinhyuk, however, was unfazed, his mind focused on the task at hand. Vulcan, ever the concerned friend, inquired about Inner and whether Cha Jinhyuk had managed to gather information without getting caught. Cha Jinhyuk reassured him, explaining that his hallucination magic, though lowly, worked perfectly. Everyone who met him would remember him slightly differently, ensuring his cover remained intact. Vulcan, ever the skeptic, questioned why he had returned empty-handed. Cha Jinhyuk, however, was confident. The information he needed was already in his possession. A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Vulcan, ever the loyal companion, praised his master once more, acknowledging his prowess. Cha Jinhyuk denied requesting room service, his gaze sharpening as he prepared for whatever lay beyond the door. With a plan in mind, Cha Jinhyuk instructed Vulcan to ready himself. On the count of 3, they would spring into action, ready to face whatever came their way. Cha Jinhyuk was ready to put his plan into action. He began the countdown, 1, 2, tension building with each word. On 3, Vulcan unleashed his bind spell, the air crackling with energy as the magic took hold. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the room, sending chills down everyone's spine. The screamer collapsed to the ground, their body hitting the floor with a heavy thud. Cha Jinhyuk's gaze locked onto the fallen figure, his voice cold and steady as he addressed them. He recognized the person as the one he had seen at the Goldlick store. The man introduced himself as Halcyon, a guest sent by Sir Puppet. Halcyon revealed that Sir Puppet had sent him there, his words carrying a sense of urgency and importance. Cha Jinhyuk looked outside, his attention drawn to the sight of Goldlicka's army marching towards the 10th floor's branch. The army was clad in golden armor, their formation disciplined and intimidating as they advanced. Cha Jinhyuk wondered where Gold Lich was, his thoughts interrupted by a voice that seemed to know more than it let on. Gold Lich appeared, commending Cha Jinhyuk for his arrogance and the courage to show his face, his words laced with a hint of menace. Gold Lich warned that there was a hefty price to pay for those who knew too much, his gaze unwavering and cold. Cha Jinhyuk met Gold Lich's gaze, a silent exchange passing between them as he acknowledged their long-awaited reunion. Gold Lich ordered his army to bring someone to the Moe room, emphasizing that the person needed to be alive. The army readied themselves, their movements synchronized and precise, as they prepared to follow their leader's command. Cha Jinhyuk's glare intensified, his expression a mix of determination and defiance as he challenged Gold Lich. The army lined up for battle, their formation a formidable blockade, ready to face the impending attack. The army stood ready, but before the battle could even begin, a fist was already connecting with a soldier's face. Someone was clearly done with the formalities and ready to get straight to business. With a powerful punch, the protagonist wasn't holding back. He was furious, questioning why anyone would so stupidly reveal their strategy to everyone. The captain was down, knocked out cold. The soldiers around him were stunned, barely able to mutter his title in disbelief. The protagonist glanced around, his gaze sharp and focused. He was far from finished. With insane speed, he tore through the army, leaving destruction in his wake. He was a force of nature, unstoppable and relentless. His eyes locked onto a new target, the Gold Lich. This was the opponent he was looking for. Lunging with his spear, he challenged the Gold Lich, asking if it would be his opponent. The battle was about to get real. The Gold Lich turned, its attention now fully on the protagonist. The air was thick with tension. A rumbling power began to emanate from the Gold Lich, something golden and ominous. The protagonist could feel the shift in the battle. The protagonist's eyes widened as he recognized the power. Golden power, something he hadn't expected. He quickly blocked, his reflexes sharp and precise. He knew he had to be careful. The protagonist realized the Gold Lich's trait, how it consumed gold and used it with its mana. This was going to be a tough fight. He deflected the gold, his movements swift and sure. He wasn't about to back down, challenging the Gold Lich to bring its best. The Gold Lich responded, its voice echoing with power. It was clear this battle was far from over. Gold shot towards the protagonist, a wave of power that threatened to overwhelm him. The Gold Lich warned that even he would be critically injured if hit by it. The protagonist braced himself, ready to face the onslaught. He wasn't about to let this attack take him down. A huge explosion rocked the battlefield, the impact sending shockwaves through the air. The battle had reached its climax, and the outcome was still uncertain. As the dust settled from the explosion, Gold Lich stood amidst the chaos, a smirk playing on his lips. He thought he had the upper hand, that his opponent was finished. But the protagonist wasn't about to throw in the towel. With a swift movement, he pressed the tip of his spear against Gold Lich's face, a clear message that the fight was far from over. Gripping his spear tightly, the protagonist declared that, in a battle of speed, he would be the last one standing. The determination in his eyes was unwavering. Suddenly, Hal's voice echoed through the battlefield, shouting Gold Lich's name. It seemed like he had something important to say. Gold Lich, however, was not impressed. He grabbed the spear tip, questioning the protagonist's ability to apprehend him. He boasted about his power, claiming he could easily kill someone like the protagonist. But the protagonist wasn't fazed. He revealed that Gold Lich hadn't heard where he got his information from, and that they also wanted to capture him alive. The protagonist offered to tell Gold Lich about his source, a hint of mystery in his voice. Gold Lich, intrigued, told the protagonist to follow him. It seemed like he was leading him to a secret location. They arrived at a grand room, the size and opulence of which were breathtaking. It was clear that Gold Lich had a taste for the finer things in life. As Gold Lich closed the door behind them, the protagonist couldn't help but comment on the grandeur of the room. Money sure was great, wasn't it? Suddenly, Gold Lich began to use his power, the air around them crackling with energy. The protagonist braced himself, ready for whatever was coming next. Gold spikes shot towards the protagonist, the danger imminent. He barely had time to react as the spikes came perilously close to his face. Gold Lich boasted about his golden power, claiming that it completely shut them out from the outside world. Not even gods or demons could enter. With a smirk, Gold Lich told the protagonist to tell him who had revealed that he was the owner of the auction. His voice echoed through the room as he demanded to know who the hell had told the protagonist that information. The tension in the room was palpable, the stakes higher than ever. Gold Lich, real name William, suddenly shifted gears, introducing the auction trade system like a used car salesman. It was a massive setup allowing folks to trade items within the tower. But plot twist, it wasn't some natural phenomenon. Someone cooked it up in their secret lab. And who might that someone be? Drumroll, please. It was none other than our golden friend himself, Gold Lich. Yeah, he built it from scratch, probably while sipping on some spectral coffee. But here's the kicker: if this little secret got out, his entire Gold Lich empire would come crashing down like a house of cards in a wind tunnel. The pressure was on, and suddenly he was sweating more than a snowman in summer. Gold Lich leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper that was somehow still dramatic. Now, tell me, he insisted, like a villain about to reveal his master plan. Who the heck spilled the tea that he was the big boss behind the auction? The room was so tense you could cut it with a knife. Gold Lich was not here for surprises. Then, out of nowhere, the protagonist dropped a bombshell with a smirk. It was all a bluff. There was no source, no snitch, just pure, unadulterated mind games. Gold Lich looked like he'd just swallowed a lemon. Gold Lich wasn't about to take that lying down. He summoned a giant gold axe out of thin air, looking like he was ready to turn the protagonist into confetti. Having one less arm and leg wouldn't be a huge hindrance, right? He taunted, like a villain monologuing before the final battle. And swing he did. The axe came down with the force of 1,000 suns, aiming straight for the protagonist. Things were about to get messy. But just as the axe was about to make contact, Vulcan appeared out of nowhere and shattered it like it was made of glass. The room was filled with the sound of metal shattering, and everyone's jaws dropped. Gold Lich's eyes widened like he'd just seen a ghost. He stammered, clearly not expecting that plot twist. A soul soldier? Gold Lich's voice cracked with disbelief. Only a spirit master could whip up something like that. The pieces were starting to fall into place, and he wasn't liking the picture. Gold Lich was connecting the dots, and the result was not pretty. A spirit master is the only one who can use soul soldiers, he muttered, looking like he'd just solved a puzzle he didn't want to solve. The protagonist, ever the showman, took off his mask with a flourish. "It's time for you to pay me back, William," the protagonist said, smiling like he'd just won the lottery. The tension in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. What would Gold Lich do next? William was left utterly surprised, his golden eyes wide as saucers. He couldn't believe it. Cha Jin-hyuk was alive, and standing right in front of him? Memories of the raid on the 100th floor, the betrayal of the 9-star, and Bale's gift flashed through his mind like a highlight reel from hell. And then it hit him, the final piece of the puzzle: resurrection. It all made sense now. Vulcan, standing off to the side, pieced it together too. So, these two had a history. This was getting juicy. William couldn't wrap his head around it. Cha Jin-hyuk, the man he thought was long gone, was standing right there. And Cha, well, he was just as shocked to see William. So what was his motive? William had to know. This was too much of a plot twist. Cha needed cash, and he wasn't afraid to ask for it. A sponsorship-type deal with the Gold Lich Company seemed like the perfect solution. William wasn't having it. Cha was talking about his company like it was his own. But Cha had a point: he was basically the founder. For someone who couldn't be a wandering merchant, Cha sure knew his stuff. He had sold William loot from the higher levels of the tower, making him a founding contributor and the largest shareholder. That arrogance, it was so like the real Cha Jin-hyuk. William could feel it. But if Cha wanted a contract, he needed to give something in return. Cha had information, lots of it. He had been gathering and deducing things, and he was ready to trade. Even if Cha was the real deal, William wasn't about to be taken for a ride. If it was a contract, there needed to be an exchange. Cha offered up the information he had deduced, a summary of everything he had gathered. It was a tempting offer. William pulled out a bag of gold coins, ready to listen. He would decide on a price after hearing what Cha had to say. Cha dropped a bombshell. 9-star had planned to betray him, which meant there was a mastermind behind it all. Someone with enough power to command them. A power that could command the 9-star. It could only be one of the tower's 4 monarchs. William was shocked. The 4 royalties? This was bigger than he had thought. William was shocked. The 4 royalties? This was bigger than he had thought. Cha Jin-hyuk explained that they wanted to protect the supremacy of their species. If another species climbed to the higher levels of the tower that appeared in another world, their power would dampen. So, they either wanted to climb to the top of the tower or get rid of those who had the potential to climb high up. William added that those who participated would become the ruler of a decent floor. Cha Jin-hyuk agreed, understanding the stakes. William pressed further, asking if that was all Cha Jin-hyuk could deduce, reminding him that he was the only victim after all. Vulcan chimed in, mentioning the Oni village on the 100th floor, asking if William knew it. Vulcan revealed that he knew the only survivor from that disaster, a young Oni named Haryu. He clarified that Haryu was a young Aino. Haryu was seen cutting an orc's head, her determination fierce and unyielding. Haryu muttered to herself, feeling that her strength was still not enough to achieve her goals. She knew she needed to become stronger to win against her challenges. The system announced that Haryu had exceeded the time limit, her efforts falling short. The 10th floor's challenge room declared that the raid had failed, leaving Haryu disappointed. Haryu thought about how she needed to become a lot stronger to meet Arabian again. A spirit sword questioned why she was groaning, teasing her about her struggles. The spirit suggested that if she wanted to quickly meet that guy, she should leave the great orc warrior to him, making it seem easy. Haryu refused, declaring that she was not going to use the power of the Dragon Slayer sword. She remembered her promise to Arabian, her resolve unwavering. With her promise to Arabian fueling her, Haryu vowed to grow stronger on her own. She wasn't in the mood for any distractions or interference, especially not from anyone trying to talk to her. Cha Jin-hyuk found it odd how the Onis had only sent a young child and a sword during the war. It didn't add up, and he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. The Gold Lich couldn't believe what he was hearing. The target was a child and a sword? It seemed too bizarre to be true. Cha Jin-hyuk confirmed it. To kill one young Oni, they had wiped out the entire Oni species. It was mind-blowing, but it all pointed to one conclusion. They were hand-picking their targets, and it was shaking the very foundation of the tower. William couldn't believe it. It was impossible. Something that would shake the tower's foundation. But if it was true, then everything made sense. Cha Jinhyuk stood up, his mind set on revenge. He was going to obliterate everyone, including the 9-star. He walked towards the Gold Lich, declaring his intent to take down those supporting the 4 royalties, the ones who killed his family. The 4 royalties who had slaughtered his family were going to pay. He recalled the horrific scene of his family being slaughtered, the memory fueling his resolve. The Gold Lich released the golden barrier, sensing the intensity of Cha Jinhyuk's emotions. Just then, Ball and the Ninetail interrupted with their messages, ruining the mood. Cha Jinhyuk couldn't help but feel annoyed by their timing. The Gold Lich, seeing Cha Jinhyuk's determination, decided to buy his deduction. It was a great choice, but he needed proof. William stood up, demanding that Cha Jinhyuk prove he was him. Right then and there, Cha Jinhyuk let out a sigh, clearly annoyed by William's demand. He shot back, questioning if William didn't trust him at all and asking if they really needed to go this far. The Gold Lich responded with his usual merchant mindset, emphasizing that trust was an asset in his line of work and that he couldn't do business without it. Cha Jinhyuk found the situation annoying but decided to call upon Ball for help, hoping he could vouch for his identity. He asked Ball if he could confirm his identity and suggested a handshake to seal the deal. Ball agreed to think about it if the deal was for 3. Cha Jinhyuk quickly accepted the terms, asking if it was a deal. Ball sent a message to Gold Lich, relaying the agreement. Gold Lich laughed, finally conceding that he couldn't deny it any further. He reached out his hand, stating that he would believe Cha Jinhyuk now and that it was good to see him again, Ghostface. Cha Jinhyuk reached out his hand as well, expressing his belief that there would come a day when they would call each other by their real names, referring to William as Gold Lich. They shook hands in a homey kind of way. Cha Jinhyuk then made his first request to his sponsor, asking for every type of weapon that could be used in the tuner and lots of spares. William, taken aback, questioned if Cha Jinhyuk was planning to start a war on the 10th floor, clearly surprised by the request. Cha Jinhyuk asked if William had heard the term All-Master, hinting at something bigger. He showed William his stats, leaving him in shock. William was surprised as hell, exclaiming that an All-Master was a class, clearly shocked by the revelation. Still reeling from the class revelation, Cha Jinhyuk dropped another bomb. The All-Master class was no joke. It boosted all his stats, making him feel like a pro with any weapon, even ones he had never touched before. William, aka Gold Lich, couldn't help but think that Cha Jinhyuk was way stronger now than he had been back in the day. Sure, he might be weaker at the moment, but his potential? Through the roof. William had like clockwork, the puppet appeared, asking if William had finished his conversation. William didn't waste any time. He ordered the puppet to buy and gather all the weapons on the 10th floor, making sure to use different company names to keep things low-key. Handing over a gold card, William instructed the puppet to pack everything up for a very important person. Some time later, the puppet returned, thanking them for waiting and holding up a sleek black robe. The puppet announced that he had purchased all the requested items. Cha Jinhyuk was confused. Everything was in that one piece of cloth? He had asked for more than just weapons. The puppet clarified that yes, everything was stored inside. Cha Jinhyuk was taken aback. Stored? William couldn't help but smile. The name of that coat was Subspace Coat. The coat's lining was linked to a subspace, capable of storing as many inanimate objects as a large storage room could. Cha Jinhyuk put it on, and William explained that its temperature, size, and color were adjustable. Plus, it had protective magic cast on it. William added that if Cha Jinhyuk stored his accessories in it, their effects would be automatically applied. William grinned, telling Cha Jinhyuk that it was a very rare item within the tower, and to use it with care. With the subspace coat on, Cha Jinhyuk smirked, thinking about how he had to be careful with the item since he needed to handle his lofty expenditures. Meanwhile, a step out of the portal, Kim Sung-tae and his teammates stumbled out, barely holding on. They were alive, but it had been a close call and they thought they were going to die. Since they challenged it as a party, there were no achievements, but they survived because of Sung-tae's support item. But they had used up all their assets before they could even reach the 10th floor. Now, they were wondering how they were going to climb the tower. Kim Sung-tae reassured them, mentioning the White Swallow Guild had a branch on the 10th floor. If they met him, they would be able to climb again, but with more affluence. As they walked, Sung-tae thought about that guy on the first floor, who seemed to have become a super rookie called Ghostface. He grit his teeth, determined to make him pay for threatening and humiliating him. Alright, they were going to enter a bloody revenge battle. But as they looked up, they were scared by what they saw. The guild was burned down. Sungti couldn't believe what happened. The other guild members had evacuated to the 30th floor. His teammates asked him what he was going to do now. They were lacking in skills and money, and it was impossible to climb up to the 30th floor like this. They told him to say something, that they trusted and followed him, Kim Sungti. Sungti stayed quiet, thinking about how besides the fact that he was in a good guild, he was nothing. He told them to shut up, cursing under his breath. Then he thought about his teammates, wondering if they were completely useless, bastards who wouldn't have been able to pass the 10th floor without him. Kim couldn't help but think his teammates were useless, unable to even clear the 10th floor without him. Just then, a two-tailed fox appeared, and Kim saw an opportunity to vent his frustration on these so-called bastards. The fox was shaking, seemingly out of nowhere, making Kim wonder what it was doing there. Kim waved the fox away, telling it they had no food and to just go away. But the fox just licked his boots, grossing Kim out. Kim yelled at the fox, calling it disgusting and telling it to get lost. In a fit of rage, Kim kicked the fox, calling it a mutt. The fox hit the ground hard with a whimper, but Kim wasn't done yet. He walked towards the fox, muttering about how it came at the right time because he was stressed too. And then he kicked the fox again, taking out all his frustration on the poor creature. Kim kept kicking the fox repeatedly, screaming about how nothing ever worked out for him. He couldn't help but wonder why his life only seemed to go wrong, yelling about how he only had mutts around him. Kim continued his rant, claiming he was so unlucky, unaware of the danger lurking in the dark alley. A light flickered in the dark alley, but Kim was too caught up in his rage to notice. Suddenly, a knife cut Kim's leg, catching him off guard. Kim looked down at his leg, confused and in pain, wondering what had just happened. A figure with an intense aura walked towards Kim, telling him to stop and that if he continued, it would just take longer to treat. Kim screamed in pain, asking who the figure was and what they wanted. The fox, barely breathing, seemed to respond, asking if Kim was talking to it. As the fox struggled to breathe, MC's eyes suddenly blazed with an intense aura. He declared that he would be the one to own that fox, his determination burning brighter than ever. With his eyes still blazing from his earlier declaration, MC turned to Vulcan, announcing that they had one final stop to make. Vulcan, curious as ever, asked where they were headed. MC revealed their destination, the Tower of Class Change, where he aimed to gain spirit power. Vulcan was taken aback, reminding him that he was already a spirit master. His response, classic I know, right? Moment. He explained that his class change was like a bug, similar to being an all-master and having memories of his previous life. He confessed that he had yet to obtain spirit power through cultivation. Vulcan nodded, understanding dawning on him. MC then suggested they take a break from using Golden Lich's money for the night. Meanwhile, the nine-tailed fox sensed something amiss, its ears perking up in alert. Ball nudged MC, urging him to look over there. MC turned his gaze, a soft N escaping his lips. His eyes widened as he took in the sight before him. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He turned to the nine-tailed fox, demanding to know what it was doing. The nine-tailed fox, in a rare moment of vulnerability, asked MC for help. It revealed that its baby was in danger, and it needed his assistance. Back to the present, MC mused, never expecting to see the offspring of the nine-tailed fox, a mystical animal, in a place like this. And just like that, a quest popped up. Save the baby fox, get a fox item, and boost his rep with the nine-tailed fox clan. Jin-hyuk couldn't believe his luck. This was going to be a walk in the park. But then Kim saw that mask and froze. Ghost face? No way, this couldn't be happening. Jin-hyuk turned to Kim, eyes narrowing. He felt like he'd seen this guy before. But where? Kim wasn't having it. He snapped back, ready to throw down. Did this guy really just try to provoke him? Kim's crew leapt into action, ready to take Jin-hyuk down. They weren't messing around. But Jin-hyuk just turned, calm as ever. He had a plan. And then, poof, he vanished into thin air. Just like that, he was gone. Kim's team was left scratching their heads. What just happened? Where did he go? Meanwhile, Jin-hyuk was dashing away, the baby fox safe in his arms. He wasn't sticking around for a fight. He shot a glance back at Kim, wondering if he'd stepped on the foxtail on purpose. That would have been his last bit of luck. Kim was shaking, furious. He needed to know, and he wasn't above cutting off Jin-hyuk's leg to find out. Jin-hyuk just smirked. The nine-tailed fox was watching, and he wasn't about to let these guys off easy. The fox's voice echoed in his mind, telling him to take them down. It was time to finish this. Kim's crew charged, trying to surround Jin-hyuk. They weren't going down without a fight. But Jin-hyuk just tossed something at Kim. A little keepsake, you could say. He looked back, ready for whatever came next. Kim looked down, horrified. That was his severed foot. This guy was on another level. As Kim stared at his severed foot in shock, the leg suddenly glowed, lighting up the grim scene with an eerie radiance. Before he could react, a massive explosion rocked the area, sending him stumbling back in classic action movie style. The protagonist declared it a corpse explosion, walking away like a seasoned action hero. Turning his attention to the fox, he questioned if this little creature was really the offspring of the legendary nine-tailed fox. The fox just smiled innocently, as if it understood every word. The protagonist pondered what to do next, deciding the first step was giving the fox a name, since calling it Baby Fox all the time wasn't cutting it. He mused that shortening Baby Fox could lead to the name box, but the fox looked utterly disgusted by the suggestion. Vulcan chimed in, suggesting that the fox might crack his head open when it grew up, especially since the nine-tailed fox was fiercely nodding in agreement. The protagonist shot back, asking if Vulcan had a better idea, to which Vulcan huffed, ready to display his naming sense from years of experience. Vulcan proposed the name Harangue, combining the meanings of fox and bright, but the response was less than enthusiastic. Vulcan grumbled, telling them to just say they didn't like it if that was the case. The protagonist then suggested calling it Miho for short, since it was a two-tailed fox, and asked if that was the best they could do. Vulcan scoffed, wondering if the picky fox would be satisfied with such a simple name. To everyone's surprise, the fox seemed cheerful about the name Miho, its tail wagging happily. Suddenly, a system notification popped up, announcing the completion of a quest. They had saved the nine-tailed fox's offspring, Miho, and the reward had been granted. The fox lit up, glowing brightly as the protagonist looked on in anticipation. The protagonist examined the reward, curious about what it could be. It was a fox mask similar to the Oni mask he already had. When worn, it would allow him to use the fox's abilities, which increased in proportion to the owner's strength. Holding the fox mask, he noted that if it truly held the fox's abilities, there should be several powerful skills at his disposal. Cha Jin-hyuk considered the mask's abilities, and among them, the charm ability stood out as the most useful for his current situation. The nine-tailed fox needed vitality to recover, and there was no better skill to detain an opponent. But vitality? What did he need that for? The quest updated. To regain its strength, the fox required 999 fresh raw livers. The reward would be an increase in friendliness with the nine-tailed fox. Vulcan questioned the need for livers, and Cha Jin-hyuk realized that since they needed to be fresh, he would have to hunt all of them personally. Considering the price of the mask, Cha Jin-hyuk knew it couldn't be helped. He had to do what was necessary. There were benefits to gaining favorability, and Cha Jin-hyuk looked forward to it, addressing the nine-tailed fox directly. With everything settled, Vulcan announced he would be going out for a stroll. Cha Jin-hyuk informed Vulcan that when the sun rose, they would go to the Tower of Class Change. If Vulcan thought he would be late, he should just head there directly. Vulcan agreed. Vulcan flew out fast, feeling the wind rush past him. Looking down, Vulcan noted that everything was very different from when he was climbing the tower. Suddenly, he felt an eye staring at him, sending a chill down his spine. Vulcan turned to look, feeling a strange sensation. He dismissed it, thinking it was just his imagination. Looking down, he saw a person with distinct features that made his heart race. A dragon? The horns and savage mana were unmistakable. It was a dragon. The dragon man laughed, sending a shiver down Vulcan's spine. The dragon man expressed a chilling desire to kill off all the dragons. Vulcan sweated nervously, realizing the gravity of the situation. Kill the dragons? Vulcan's mind raced as he thought about the dragons. They were narcissistic, portraying some twisted sense of familial love. Among the four royalties, suddenly a realization hit him. The dragons were heading to the 10th floor, and soon, he was in deep trouble.